Hi everybody and welcome to the Bagpipe Report. I'm Blake Norton and I will be your host for this evening. We have got all the wrestling news from around the world, as long as we got Johnny Storm here, the biggest sex machine, best wrestler in England.
Oh my god, that show! Yeah, oh my god, that show! Get off!
Sorry, what do you say?
Get off my goddamn show!
Sign my petition, FWA, baby.
Petition.
Fuck off. Let's hit the music, Jack.
Okay, joining us now in studio, we have one of the foremost representatives of British wrestling. You have seen him in so many different promotions. You've seen him all across the world. You've seen him in FWA, where he's one of their biggest stars, Ring of Honor, CZW, NWA, TNA, their home DVDs, and much, much more. It is a pleasure to say hello to the Wonder Kid, Johnny Storm.
What's up, dog?
How are you, Johnny?
How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Now, most recently, you had a match with James Ty. You lost that match, and it was loser leaves FWA. Now, tell us, what have you been up to since that, and are you working to get back into FWA?
Oh, wow. Just hit me with the hard one straight away.
I just thought I'd put you in that position.
Killing me. Loser leaves FWA
you lose
match.
the lost to lose?
Yeah, I lost that as well. I don't know where, I still haven't found it actually. No, basically, we did the deal in the FWA because I was going to Thailand for 3 months to do the tour with Scott Conway, and that's a whole horrible story, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yes.
Seeing as you're such a great reporter.
The pain
Blake.
and the misery and the suffering of professional wrestlers is what we thrive on.
Yeah.
You know,
You do
that
it
gets
so
the
well.
ratings, man.
But basically, I'm doing a deal now where I'm trying to get back into the FWA.
Mm-hmm.
Got my petition right here, which is signed by all you guys, the millions of crew that is the Wrestling Channel. And it's going good, you know. FWA is happy with it, and they're happy with the direction of it and stuff like that. And James was awesome in the match. We had a real good match to go out on, and I think it worked really well, and I really like the stuff they're doing with me at the moment, and I think they've got just better things.
Well, speaking of you and the FWA, of course, this is ongoing, but you did return for one match, which was against Colt Cabana, US superstar. How did that go?
That was awesome. Colt is obviously one of the best indie workers out there at the moment, in my opinion. And Ring of Honor is a great company, obviously. We knew him from before there. And it was a deal where they brought Colt in, and he was originally going to wrestle, I think it was 5-star Mark Belton. And they thought, wouldn't it be cool if we go in this direction, you know what I mean? Because we actually came home early from Thailand, so I wasn't actually scheduled to be on the Broxbourne show.
Right.
And they said, well, we can do this if you like this, and it sounded really cool. And we came up with a petition gimmick and stuff like that, and just the response we've had from it so far has just been awesome. And I think it worked really, really well. But they haven't clarified yet that how or when I'm going to be back in the FWA, so I might not be back in just yet. So if you see me in the street, sign the petition, baby.
Now, when you talk about English wrestling, you talk about Doug Williams, who's, of course, had a lot of success abroad. Noah in Japan. He was Ring of Honor Pure Champion just last month. You talk about James Ty, who in FWA has wrestled many of the great wrestlers who've come in, AJ Styles and many other guys. He's their go-to guy. And you would be, in that trio, you'd be the third guy because, of course, not only have you wrestled superstars here in the UK and Ireland, such as Colt Cabana, you've also gone over to the US. How much pressure is on you to represent England? Because, I mean, when people see you wrestle for NWA TNA, they see that all over the world and they go, this is what English wrestling is about. Is that hard to live up to?
No, I don't think so. I think it's long overdue, to be honest, because nobody looks at British wrestling, or looks at England, really, for wrestlers anymore. I mean, we produce some of the best wrestlers in the world, you know. We've got, you know, Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith, people like that. Johnny Saint, you know, the list goes on, Robbie Brookside. And no one looks at England for people anymore. And it was only by chance that me and Jodie got the opportunity to go out to the States, because when we did Best of the Best 2, which was the first show we did we actually lucked into it because two guys, I can't remember who they were, but they pulled out of the tournament like 2 weeks before.
Right.
And a call got made to a friend of ours, and he recommended like me and Jody, and that's how we got in. But basically, no one even thinks of looking at England. I don't know whether it's because flights are expensive or they have this misconception that flights are really expensive to the States, which they're not really. Not compared to, you know, like an internal flight from the States from like the south to north will probably be the same price as like England to Philly, something like that. But I don't know whether it's the misconception or what, or they don't think that we've got like those type of wrestlers anymore. But we have, and you know, it's just getting out there and getting them to know it. And I think with people like Doug and me and Jody going out there and stuff, then they're realising, wow, Britain's got like a good talent of wrestlers, and we're going to start looking at it now.
Now, the door opened in unlikely fashion, but since then, you and Jody both, you wrestle in the CZW, obviously, also Ring of Honor, and you guys have had amazing matches all over the world. Would you consider him to be one of your best opponents?
Oh, Jody's awesome. Absolutely awesome. He's fantastic. He's just a phenomenon, you know. I mean, I don't know, you can't teach talent like that, you know what I mean? I'm a big believer in, with wrestling, you've either got it or you haven't got it. And Jody was just one of those people who just took to it like that, and it was just fantastic. And it was a really sad day, I guess, when he decided to retire. But you know, we hold out hope that he'll be back someday. And
do you think there's a chance? Do you think he will?
I think he will down the line. Down the line. I mean, he's got personal problems and stuff like that, but you know, I'm sure he'll sort it out. It's nothing major, and I know for a fact that he absolutely misses it desperately, and I'm sure he'll be back.
Well, that's good to hear, because he's an amazing performer. The kind of style that you and he wrestle, you can see the influence, you can see 10, 20, 30 years ago English style in there, but there's also a much bigger emphasis on high flying that simply wasn't around, because so much of wrestling we see today actually came from England, and a lot of people don't realize this. Do you think that, I mean, we've only started to touch the tip of the iceberg in terms of the long-term effects of the high spots and the big bumps. Do you think that people like you and Jody will have shorter careers because of that? How do you think you'll be 10 years down the road?
I think about it a lot, to be honest with you. I do think to myself now that, oh my God, I'm hurting now. Not terribly, but, you know, I couldn't stand up. Like, I was in a club the other night, and I was just standing at the bar. And after like 20 minutes, I was like, geez, I need to sit down or something. And I'm thinking, my God, I'm quite young. And in 10 years' time, what am I going to be like then? Yeah. So it's really scary in a way, you know. And I don't know, I try and I cater to the show that I work, if you know what I mean. If it's obviously FWA, then that's the sort of style they're looking for, the crazy stuff or something different, you know. And whereas more the old school shows like is more family orientated and stuff. You don't have to go out there and kill yourself because the fans will appreciate it more, like the little things. So basically, I'm trying to manoeuvre myself more to that sort of style. So I only have to do the crazy stuff when I have to do it, you know, or when I'm getting paid to do it. Good.
What promotions do you enjoy working for most? I mean, on that topic, for instance, when you work with All Star Wrestling, I know that Brian Dixon has a big emphasis on connecting to the fans, and he cares more about you connecting to one fan than doing a Hurricane Run off the top, which is sort of what you're talking about.
Well, anyone will tell you who works with Brian Dixon, I'm sure if you get any of the other guys in here, like Colt and people like that, the first impressions you'll get of him is like, he'll come at you and say, I want action. Action, action, action. That's exactly it. And he doesn't care about psychology or anything like that, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but for his shows, he just wants the fans involved 100%. And to be honest, that's what I like. You know, I can't stand going out there in, I'm not saying Japan specifically, but you know, Japan more appreciate it more, don't they? They're like quiet and they watch and they're interested. But when I was in Japan, I was just going out there and geeing up so much. I was like, come on, baby, come on. And it was funny because over here, like, the crowds would be like, Johnny, Johnny. And in Japan, you hear like these obscure voices in the crowd, like, it's mainly women as well. Like, it'd be like, Johnny, like that. And I'm looking around every time someone's saying it at the start of a match. It's like, Johnny, there's one over there. Johnny, Jesus. There's one over there. And it got to me, I thought, wow, I can have some fun with this. So the next time someone said it, it was like completely quiet. Someone goes, Johnny. I go, what? And the whole place just popped, man. I was like, damn, this is easy. I want to come back to Japan.
Well, you're in Japan recently. Actually, Ross Hart sends his regards. He was one of the people you're over there with.
Ross is awesome.
He is absolutely awesome. Who were you over there with, and how'd you find working over there?
Wow. It was actually the second time I've been to Japan.
Right.
I went to 01 first for Steve Carino, obviously, which was absolutely great. We did pay-per-view for them, which is wicked. And it was actually in the same arena. It was in the place where Noah has their home base, Diffa Arake or somewhere like that it's called. Awesome arena, absolutely fantastic for TV. And it was called the WrestleAid Project, and it was run by this wrestler called Mr. Go, his ring name is. And Joey Legend was actually the guy who hooked me up with it. I was in Thailand at the time. I was literally just coming home, and I got a call saying, Johnny, man, they're doing a cruiserweight tournament. Are you interested? Yes or no? I need to know now. I was like, let me think. Yes. No, actually, I said, what's the money? Yes. And then,
Consummate
that was it.
professional wrestler.
Yeah, yeah. And it was like a week after I got back from Thailand. So I came back, I went on the camps for like 4 days, then I went to Japan. I was knackered.
Right.
But I was really glad I went because they flew us in on the Tuesday and the show was on the Sunday. So I was like, oh, God, Japan, you know. You hear about these death tours where you're just bored.
Yeah.
But it was so good, man, because they took us out, they took us swimming, they took us around Tokyo, they gave us money, they gave us women, you know. But it was a really cool company, and they've got a show in October, which they got coming up, and they got a show in December. I'm hoping to get back in December, actually from Thailand, because it's a real cheap flight, and it's like a 5-hour flight.
Right.
But really cool promotion to go for, and I recommend it. Some of the guys there was obviously Ross Hart, like you said. He brought in the Stampede guys, Teddy Hart.
That's right. Was T.J. Wilson there? Or?
No, it was Jack Evans.
Right, right.
Petey Williams. Oh, God, who was there?
Some of the guys you've seen from TNA, of course, and things like that.
Yeah,
so.
first time I met Petey.
Really?
He was really cool. I actually wrestled him in the semis.
Right.
And we had a really good match. Ross really put a match out. I was so happy with that. Because I really respected Ross, because I was like, Ross, anything about the match? He was Johnny. It was awesome. Probably my favourite match. I was like, hey, you the man, Ross. Respect, bruv. And he's like, come over to Stampede and stuff like that anytime you want. And I was like, dude, I'll do it. You know, it'd be cool. It'd be fun. And I was just speaking to some of the other guys about one of the incidents there with Teddy Hart. He done his elbow in the match, and that was quite a controversial thing. But
was it a one of those controversial things that happened but didn't happen, or?
Well, I would just say he gets injured a lot.
I've found that.
I don't understand why.
Well, speaking of Japan and 01, in fact, the first promotion you worked for, a lot of U.S. guys are working over there right now. Low-Key's taking a lot of work. Spanky, a lot of people are talking about Brian Kendrick, who left WWE recently.
He's a good guy as well.
Yeah, apparently he's turned down NWA bookings. He's turned down FWA bookings to go over to 01. What is it about the promotion that makes a lot of guys from this part of the world, the U.S. and England, want to go over there?
Man, it's a different world. It's got its good and bad points, but I'd say the good outweighs the bad, obviously, because you're just treated with respect. Japan is real big on respect out there. Like, just everywhere you go, you know, they're like, oh, you know, really nice to meet you, and really genuine people and stuff, and they treat you like superstars. I mean, I guess we're sort of classed as stars within the wrestling world, but over there, you know, everybody and anybody just treats you with so much respect, and you feel like a superstar, you know, and it's just awesome. It's a different world. And the fans after the shows, you know, we had fans outside our hotel like 2 days before the show queuing up just like get autographs and pictures and things like that. They take their wrestling really seriously out there, which is really good as well. And they haven't sort of broken kayfabe to the extent like America has.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess, I don't know whether it's they believe more, but they're more into it and more serious about it.
Allow themselves to respect without feeling
and that's the
stupid.
way it should be,
It is.
in my opinion.
American wrestling, we had Jim Cornette on the phone last month, and we were kind of, reminiscing about the death of kayfabe. Is it less fun now to wrestle in a place like the U.S. where people, like, when you mess up one spot or something, everybody thinks they're brilliant. It's like, you effed up, you know, all this kind of, like, fans almost act like they're above you and you have to dance for them kind of thing.
Yeah, it's only America. I've really found that in some parts of America. I don't know, it's hard. it's hard to explain, really. I mean, the bottom line is, these are wrestling fans, right? And they're here to enjoy the show. So why would a fan, like, they obviously like wrestling, they want to be part of it and involved in it. Why would a fan come along to a show just to say, you suck?
Yeah.
You effed up, things like that. Yeah. What's the point? You come to enjoy yourself, right? You don't come here to just say, oh, that was crap, that was crap. Because you're insulting the product that you like. What's the point of going, you know? Yeah. I really think fans should get involved as much as possible. I really enjoy that. And just get into it, enjoy it. Come, be a fan. Have fun. What's the big deal with that, you know? And it has got to the point now where it's too far, you know, and it's really hard to, like, get over. Philly is, like, the one that gets, it's said, you know, the hardest place in the world to get over.
Right.
But once you're over in Philly, man, then it's cool. It's back to normal, you know what I mean? You have to get past that first hump for, like, where they see you're, like, a decent worker or they respect you or whatever. Then, if you do, like, miss a spot or something like that, then they won't grill you so bad, you know what I mean? Because they like you and stuff. Right. So I like wrestling in Philly now, you know. I've wrestled at the arena, like, umpteen times for XPW and stuff and CZW, and they've always been cool with me, but first time going in there, I just see guys get killed, man, by the crowd, and they come backstage and it takes it out of you, you know, because you think, well, what have I done wrong, you know? Yeah. You're just there to try and entertain these people and they're just, like, slagging you off, and it's depressing in a way.
Has that kind of mentality entered English wrestling, do you feel, or is it still more fun and more old school?
Everyone goes on about, like, the Smart Marks and the FWA, that's the company for it. I could only recall, like, maybe 1 or 2 shows where there's been, like, you effed up, stuff like that. Other than that, I reckon our fans, like the FWA fans, are awesome because they are respectful, I think, in my opinion, you know. But they're here, they're getting to that point maybe now a little bit where they're like borderline with it. But I don't think if someone does miss a spot, they don't crucify you for it now, you know. They'll be like, oh, and then, you know, get into the match again, you know, clap or G up and stuff like that, and that's the way it should be.
How do you feel the English scene is right now? Is it better or worse than 5 years ago? And is someone like an English star such as yourself, are you able to make a good living in England, or do you need to go outside England to sustain yourself?
Yeah, definitely need to go out of England, unfortunately. There is work, but it's like, it's not exposure shows. I call them exposure shows, you know what I mean? The only really one in England is, like, obviously the FWA, and there are some other good companies there, but yeah, like I say, I mean, I go into Europe quite a lot, and thing is, when me and Jodie went to America and we came back, it's weird, we were seen more as stars in this country, even though all we did was do what we do in England, but in America. When these American indie guys come over, fantastic athletes like AJ Styles and, you know, Colt Cabana, people like that, awesome wrestlers, but they're seen in England more as stars just because they wrestle in America. Right. And that annoys me a little bit, to be honest, because all they do is they wrestle in America. They do exactly the same as what we do, but it's in the States, and they're seen as more stars.
It does seem to me that when English stars go to the States, Americans like Nigel McGuinness or Doug Williams are like, okay, who is this person? Whereas when someone from the States come over here, almost no matter who they are, it's almost like, well, he's an American wrestler, and that's sort of like a passport or something like that right off the bat.
It's crazy, you know. It's annoying. I think, I don't know.
Now, talking about traveling, of course, when you did leave FWA and England for Thailand earlier this year, we were expecting you to be gone a lot longer. What exactly went down in Thailand that you wound up back in this neck of the woods with your petition, right?
Wow, that was awesome. Thailand was great up until the last, like, 2 days. It was a horrible situation. It was like, basically, an English promoter lives in Thailand, and he went half and half with this Thai promoter. Cut a long story short, he got screwed over, and this guy was sort of had connections to not so nice people in Thailand because it's such a great country for that. And it all went wrong, and we got paid because Scott was paying the money, but he refused to pay. Scott was the promoter. Right. And he refused to pay the money anymore because he wasn't making any money. We weren't drawing no people. Right. And the deal was they were going to have these tour buses come round, and loads of people were going to come to the show, go on to somewhere else. Right. Never happened in like 6 weeks. So we were doing shows in front of like 5 people, if that. And sometimes just in front of the Thai kickboxers, because they had that as well at the same time. And it was a shame because they had these massive billboards. We did like national TV in Bangkok and stuff like that, and it was going so well. And it just all went wrong, and Scott refused to like pay out any more money. which is fair enough because he was losing so much.
Right.
And he said, you guys have got to pay the money. And we said, if we don't get the money like today, we're not going to do the show. We didn't turn up to the show that night. Scott went down there to talk to them that night, and they basically threatened him, you better get out of like the area now.
Really?
So we all like fled to Bangkok, which was awesome, you know, fearing for our lives and not paying hotel bills, things like that. And fled to Bangkok. Scott got a call the next day threatening him again with some really, really dodgy stuff, like, it's too much to say, but horrible stuff basically you can get killed for in Thailand. And it got sorted out like that morning, and we all went back to the area like a couple of days later, and everything's been cool since. So that was that. We got a good 2 months out of it.
Right.
It was only a month earlier, but the plan was once the 3 months was up, there was going to be another 3 months. It was going to be constantly going through the year.
Right.
And it had potential, man. It was awesome. The arena was wicked. And, you know, it just needed to get those tour buses coming in. Plus, it was low season in Thailand when it started. So there weren't that many people around.
Right.
But they weren't banking on that. They were banking on, like, the tourists. But unfortunately, it didn't come off. And I'm going back out there soon to get some more, threaten my life a bit more, which will be fun.
Well, apart from going back to Thailand, where else can we expect to see you? Are you going back to the US, here in England? What will you be doing the next 12 months?
I just did a show in Orpington, Kent, and I wrestled Super Dragon. He runs PWG in California, awesome promotion. Wrestled for them before, and he said, anytime you want, mate. So as soon as I'm ready, I guess I'm going to put some dates together. Maybe I'm going to try and get to TNA in Florida now, if I can get down there, but we'll see how that goes. And just do my usual run, you know. I hang out in Philly, do whatever's going, like CCW, Ring of Honor. I haven't done 3PW yet. Meanie was asking me to come in for that.
Right.
I want to do that. Definitely want to go back to Japan, like I say, in December. Hopefully 01 as well. Try and get that as well at the same time. Just travelling and making some money. Not taking too many bumps.
Well, Johnny, thank you very much for joining us here on the show and for sharing your recent exploits in the world of professional wrestling. Keep us abreast of where you are, and we will tell everybody at home where they can catch you, here or abroad.
Okay, mate. I've got a quick plug, of course. I haven't been paid for it, but I expect to be. November 13th, the biggest show of the year, FWA British Uprising 3 from the Coventry Skydome. I will be in Ireland all this week if anyone's around. I have no idea where, but it's in Ireland. So if you see someone who looks like Johnny Storm Street, it might be me. Sign the petition. 8th of October, Canvey Island, WAW, October Outrage, good show. All-Star Wrestling returns to Croydon at the Fairfield Halls after about 6 months on the 12th. So check that out. I think that's me and Colt Cabana. So if you like stupid wrestling and people entertaining you and not actually doing a whole lot of wrestling, then go see that one. And of course, watch the Bagpipe Report every week because I heard it's quite good.
Well, you will get paid for that one.
Hey!
Johnny, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We'll have you again.
See you soon.
Okay, it is now a pleasure to have on the line from over in the U.S. a good friend and an even greater legend to the world of professional wrestling. The last time we spoke on the record was just hours removed from his late great tag team partner passing away, the legendary Road Warrior Hawk. And right now we're speaking to one of the all-time greats, one of the most decorated wrestlers in the business, part of the most recognized tag team in wrestling. Road Warrior Animal, it's a pleasure to have you on the Bagpipe Report. How are you?
Yeah, how you doing? It's always great to be on the Bagpipe segment.
Thank you very much. Well, the first thing I got to ask, how are you doing? What are you working on right now?
Well, I'm still, being as lucky and as fortunate as Hawk and I were. You know, our gimmick is still, it's like a never-ending deal. I've actually been busier since Hawk's passed than I was before. I mean, gimmick's still stronger than ever. It's like I never stepped away from the ring. It's just amazing. The more and more I could put on, WWE games or Legends of Wrestling games, and I'm going to be on the next Raw versus SmackDown game.
Oh, really?
The more my popularity stays up there, so.
Well, we're now, the last time I talked to you on the record, we had your immediate candid thoughts. We're now 1 year removed. What are the thoughts and the memories from the great legacy you and Hawk had together in the business. What are the thoughts that come to the forefront when you think back about the 20 years you guys were working together?
Well, I think what comes to the forefront is that Hawk and I don't think that the wrestling business, the guys that are in wrestling, actually really appreciate the road we had to hoe and travel to get the business where it is today.
Would you like to be working with WWE right now?
I wouldn't mind probably in the agent aspect of it. I mean, I'm still physically in great shape like I've always been, and I'm still mentally healthy and everything else to do it if I wanted to. I don't know if I'd want to do it without Hawk. If they had a decent angle together with me or somebody else, that would be fine. I'd probably entertain the fact, but I'm more than capable to be behind the scenes in that corporation and that company and help that company grow. Mm-hmm. Definitely have a lot more experience than their writers have, I'll tell you that.
Do you think that it's a mistake? A lot of people criticize WWE right now because when they look for writers, when they look for people to come up with the product, they never go looking for people in the business. They always go looking to Hollywood. Do you think that's a mistake?
I think it's a total mistake. Hollywood is Hollywood and wrestling is wrestling. Mm-hmm. A guy like myself that's been in wrestling for over 20 years will know more in his little pinky nail than a guy from Hollywood to know on how to write scenes and how to write angles and do different things to attract people, because we know what it takes to be in the ring to get that crowd to pop and to please them. And if you look at now, you and I talked before, the business was hot-shotted for a while. It was hot-shotted to the fact of the shock value. Well, people don't want to see the shock value anymore. They want to see good, fan-friendly entertainment, and they want to see good guy versus bad guy, and they want to see two guys go out there and give them what they paid for.
Mm-hmm. Do you regret the fact that you and Hawk, I mean, when they started WWE Attitude in 1998, it was sort of, they sort of took the ECW idea but turned it into this international thing, and you and Hawk were back with WWE then. You guys were big stars, and they used that, and they had Hawk, of course, portray the alcoholic, suicidal angle on screen. Do you regret the fact that you guys were a part of that?
Well, I didn't want to do it to begin with. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do it from day one. As a matter of fact, they wanted me to do that, and I refused. And Hawk said, I'll do it. And they were just trying to be a businessman, and they overlooked the fact of Hawk trying to be a businessman. You can't hit things that are a little bit too close to home, and that angle would have been a little bit too close to home. Yeah. I was never a big fan of the ECW era anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm not a real big fan of that, the barbed wires and the explosion matches and the thumbtack matches, because I think that's cheap entertainment. I don't think it takes a brain surgeon, the guy's got to be off his rocker to fall on a bunch of thumbtacks, to make money. Mm-hmm. And as well as today, too. I never really liked the way I think Stone Cold Steve Austin, Steve was one heck of a piece of talent in this business, could have got as equally as popular by not drinking the beer and shooting the bird to everybody on TV either. That's just my own opinion.
Do you think that WWE should have done more to honor Hawk when he did pass away? And I could ask this about a lot of great legends like Kurt Hennig and guys that have passed away.
Yeah, well, I think they could have. There's a lot of other great legends, but I don't think there's any other entity in pro wrestling that has done anything more for tag team wrestling than Hawk and I have done. Mm-hmm. We crossed more barriers and had changed the outlook of wrestling and changed the view of what big guys can do in the ring more than anybody. Mm-hmm. I think they could have done more. I think they probably could have brought myself on TV to the dedication show. Mm-hmm. But then again, it's all about ratings and getting it out there right away. And I didn't have a chance. I didn't even get a phone call before it was already dedicated to Hawk. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was already done. Same with the Japanese people. Japanese people did the same thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Japan did a dedication show, the very next Dome show, and never even asked to fly me over. And how do you do that? How do you dedicate something to a partner or to an entity like Hawk and I were in Japan, and not even have his partner come over there? It's ridiculous, So
yeah. How do you feel about you're in a position now where you've seen your partner who had done 100% the rock star on the road lifestyle, whereas you yourself have talked about being more conservative on the road. Do you feel that promotions like WWE or WCW, whoever it is, when you work for a big promotion, do you think they should regulate for substances and steroids and things like that more heavily, or do you think it's still better, even with your loss, to let it up to the individual?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it should be regulated.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be regulated, and I think that what should happen, I said, if our business were a union and we had union benefits, I don't think you would have any problem with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guys would welcome it.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, as it sits, the guys have to do, we pay all our own taxes, we pay all our own benefits, we pay all our own medical, dental, health.
Technically, you're free agents, aren't you? I mean, you're independent contractors.
Anything you have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We pay all our own outside costs. Now, if we were treated like an employee and not an independent contractor, well then yes. Mm-hmm. But I think every one of the top guys in the wrestling business, even guys like Undertaker, Stone Cold, and guys like The Rock, were all as much money as everybody all made. We still didn't make enough. Mm-hmm. Because we were not unionized. If we were unionized and had a governing body to fight for us, we would have had a better tax break. We would have had benefits. We would have had a lot of things that they're like a regular corporation, like the NFL per se. And like the fans, I don't think the guys would have minded. Say, hey, okay, test me anytime you want. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then if a guy fails a test and that kind of setting, well, then by all means he deserves to be punished.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think now? What kind of advice would you give to young guys getting into the business who have? It's amazing in this business. It really seems that the next generation never learns from, I suppose, the mistakes of the generation before. And because the wrestling business has been opened up so much with the popularity of wrestlers like Hawk and Animal and Hulk Hogan and Jake the Snake Roberts the last 20 years, what advice would you give people getting into the business to hopefully steer them in the right direction?
Well, get it in writing. Mm-hmm. Get everything you do in writing, because they give you here today and tomorrow they can cancel if you don't get it in writing. Mm-hmm. Don't go by promises. Don't go by handshakes. Don't say, I promise you, give you my word. Don't go by any of that. Get it in writing, because you never know. And don't. The business is going to turn back around. The wrestling business is going to eventually be going back to good guy, bad guy, and strong, fan-friendly entertainment, because that's what it was based on.
Well, it's terrific to hear that you're still up to your ears in work, as well you should be. Thank you so much, Road Warrior Animal, for sharing some insights and thoughts on the wrestling industry. It's been a pleasure to have you here on the Bagpipe Report.
All right, thank you, guys.
Take care. Okay, on the phone with us right now from the USA is one of the more controversial figures in wrestling this year. The promotion that he began, that he pioneered, many will tell you, Ring of Honor, has gone from strength to strength the last 2 years. This last couple of months has been embroiled in controversy. He is indeed a firebrand in the wrestling world, has had many great successes, and he continues to work at RF Video, a company which continues to enjoy even more success as we speak. On the phone right now is Rob Feinstein. How are you, Rob?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Well, thank you for joining us here on the Bagpipe Report. The first thing I want to ask you about is the status of RF Video right now. What is your relationship to RF Video? What is your relationship to Ring of Honor? And what is your daily work like?
Okay, well, I'm 100% owner of RF Video once again. And I'm back with the company. I'm rebuilding it, restructuring it, and making it stronger than ever. The status of the company, it's really doing good again. Took a hit after the incident, the scandal first broke. But in the last couple of weeks, actually the last month and a half, orders are coming in again. More and more customers are, a lot of people I think thought that RF Video went out of business because we didn't put out a wrestling update for 8 months in the mail. Even when I was with the company, there was a lot of stuff that was being ignored. We were spending a lot of time on Ring of Honor, and we were kind of like pushing RF Video to the side. It was becoming, the red-headed stepchild, so to speak.
Right.
And now that I'm back, and this is my main focus, and this is where I'm putting all my energy into again. I'm looking to make RF video even stronger, and we've got a lot of new shoot interviews on the way. We've done a lot of shoot interviews in the past couple of weeks, and we actually just put out an update for the first time on our mailing list 2 weeks back, and we just did a huge email campaign to all our customers. So we're really building up RF video once again, and we're giving it the attention it deserves.
We're going to get into some of the more controversial elements earlier this year a bit later on, but have you found that since that took place that it's been more difficult getting guys to do RF shoot videos, to do shoot interviews?
No, not at all, because most of the guys could see through all the BS, and especially the veterans and the older guys that I've worked with in the past. They've been around the business forever. And, the only people that are really giving me a hard time now are the young guys that I actually helped break into the business, and that's just because of people that are influencing them. And, they're scared. They talk to me, but they're scared to let anybody know that they talk to me. And, whatever, to each its own. As long as they're talking to me and they all, say they're going to do business with me down the line. And, I talk to almost everybody on a weekly basis. So.
Right.
But I've had no problem getting interviews.
Now, let's go back to Ring of Honor a couple of years ago when I first started out. It was a nice idea to begin with, and it soon turned into much more than that. What were your expectations with Ring of Honor, and how did you finance those first few shows? Was it all money from RF Video, or did you have to get loans as well?
No, not at all. It was all my personal money. Mm-hmm. For the first year and a half, it was all myself. I was 100% owner for the first year and a half. What happened is me and Doug, we after ECW went out of business, there was a big void left, and we came up with an idea. It was around December of 2001. It was after ECW went out. I was sitting around, and we were going to indie shows, and we were going to these shows, and we were saying to ourselves, if these promoters could do that, we could start up a wrestling promotion. We know a lot of people in the business, mm-hmm. and we have incredible ideas. I think I've been around the business since I was like 18. I've been a fan since I was 9, but I actually started getting into the business when I was 18, so that was like about 15 years mm-hmm. I've been in the business for. So I learned a lot over 15 years, and I figured that, we could start something up. And basically our first show was February 23rd in 2002 in Philadelphia. And when we presented Ring of Honor, we wanted to present it as a sport. And we wanted to be totally different from ECW. We realized that ECW was in the past. We wanted to be something new and fresh. And I never liked the WWF style. I always thought it would insult your intelligence. And I was a huge fan back in the day of like the NWA and Bill Watts' Mid-South territory, UWF and Memphis, and territories that were built on wrestling. And we wanted to bring back the realism to professional wrestling. And we came up with the idea of Ring of Honor.
What do you think of the Ring of Honor product today? Do you think that it upholds the principles that it began with? Do you think there's been too much storyline or too much hardcore, or is it today what you would have envisioned it being when you began it in 2002?
No, I think it's pretty much the same, and I think it's going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. They got more and more into storylines, and they're adding a little bit of the hardcore stuff to it, which needed to be done, in my opinion, a while back. But it's still going strong, and I'm happy. It's my baby.
Have you any relationship with Ring of Honor right now?
Absolutely none, and I don't want to have any.
Do you have any resentment over the fact that you were essentially forced out of the company earlier this year? Do you resent the fact that you began this and suddenly you're the guy on the outside?
Well, you know what? It's I can't comment on it too much. The fans know the real deal, and you guys obviously you know the real deal. Everything happens for a reason. And, I can't be there for, reasons that I can't discuss. And actually, I have the attitude now, everything happens for a reason. And I'm spending more time with RF Video. And when when time permits, I will definitely 100% be restarting a promotion with Doug once again, your, brainchild of Ring of Honor. And we're going to do something that's, a brand new concept once again, so...
What do you think you've learned from the situation earlier this year? What happened, of course, is that there was a situation where there was a group of guys who, this was not an official, this was not a police action, this was not a legal situation. This is where pretty much an outlaw group who go around, they want to catch people who are into child pornography, that area. They went around unofficially off the record and came up with evidence, video footage that aired on television to a local affiliate of you going up to a house where they say that you expected to find a young child inside.
Well, here's the details. This is exactly what happened, and it had nothing to do with child pornography or anything like that. And they weren't the guys that actually caught me on video either. Here's the real story. This is exactly what happened. It was February 28th. I was in an adult chat room for adults on AOL. Had nothing to do with myself being in children's chat rooms. I was not on the internet stalking little kids or anything like this. I was in AOL, and I was in an adult chat room. I was approached by somebody. The person's profile, I don't know if you guys are familiar with AOL, where you can check somebody's profile.
We are.
Well, this person's profile, said college student, had a bunch of information. I don't know if you guys know about profiles where you could click on the link and you could see pictures of the person. This person had 3 pictures of themselves. They were not naked or anything like that, and it was clear as day that it was an adult. It was not a child whatsoever. And in fact, a very well-known wrestling journalist over here in the United States, along with a lot of other people when the story first broke, saw the pictures, and he will tell you that it was never a 14-year-old person. It was a college person.
Who
I got into a conversation with the person online over, I believe it was a 2-day period. Had a lot of similar interests and stuff like that. And I talked to him for the first day. Everything was fine. He told me a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff that he was telling me seemed shady, but I related to a lot of his problems that he was going through. I talked to him the next day. When I talked to him the next day, he wanted to meet me. I was very, hesitant to meet him, and I talked to him on the phone a couple times. When I talked to this person on the phone, it was clear as day that it was an adult. It would be like me talking to you right now. You could tell from the person's voice, very mature, had a conversation with them. Even on the computer, very mature, and it was never... I don't know if you guys read the chat transcript, but I never, ever initiated any sexual talk at all. I was not a pervert. It was this person that was trying to lure me in and get me to discuss a bunch of stuff that, I'm not even into. So basically what happened, I told the person, before I even went up to go meet, I said, if we hang out, I am not having sex. I said, I'm not into that at all. I am coming up there to be your friend. And I said, it is your choice if you want me to come up there.
Did you
I said,
did you say this in chat, or did you say this on the phone?
What's that?
Did you say this, what you're saying
now?
now?
That's in the transcript. You can read it. It's on their website. I said, absolutely no sex. I said, I'm coming up to be your friend. And, I said, in fact, when I talked to him on the phone, I was bringing another friend of mine. There's a mall by where this person lives. We were all going to go hang out or do whatever. There was no conversations, regarding sex. So the person's like, all right, come up. So I go up to the house, and when I get to the door, it was in a very nice residential neighborhood. Just when I got to the house, things didn't seem right. The house looked abandoned. As it turns out, I go to the front door and I knock on the door. I'm telling you, as soon as I knock on the door, there's a camera shoved in my face with a reporter. Basically, the reporter comes and says to me, "Are you Timmy?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Timmy, your name's Timmy." He goes, "Why are you here to have sex with 2 14-year-old girls?" So at that moment, I was like, all right, I was just set up by NBC News, and I had nothing to say because I didn't know if it was live TV. So I ran to my car and I drove off. There's a website called Corruptus. I think it's corrupted/justice.com, or it might be corrupted-justice.com. They'll tell you all about the practices of perverted justice. They are known to add things to the transcripts. They lie. Basically, this website, Perverted Justice, is working with NBC that week. It was sweeps weeks here in Philadelphia, and they were trying to get ratings. What happened is when I was talking to these people on the computer, I was talking to a guy from Perverted Justice. Everything I was saying, he was, I guess, broadcasting it back to the NBC people who were waiting in this house. They rented out a house for the weekend in this neighborhood, and what they did is they lured potential predators or pedophiles, whatever you want to call them. They would get into conversations with them and lure them to this house. And it wasn't Perverted Justice that filmed me. It was the NBC.
So
and they basically set me up, and, I took the bait, obviously, and I went to the house, and that's what happened.
So you can say on the record that you have never been involved with minors in this way that people
Absolutely
are accusing you of being?
Absolutely not. I never for a second thought it was a child. Never for, and there was never a child. It was an adult that I was talking to on the phone. It was an adult's pictures. The chat transcript, is filled with lies, and there's so much stuff in that chat transcript that is just bullshit.
Did they add to your side of the chat?
What do you mean?
Did they add things in that you didn't?
Oh
say
yeah,
to the
yeah,
transcript?
and that's what's being worked on. They added also sidebar comments. Like they shed me in a wrong light. Of course, they bolded certain things that they claimed that I said, and of course, they never bolded the part of the conversation where I said no sex. I'm just going to be your friend. So they played around with the chat, and I get have a chat with you, and I get ad stuff. You know, it's very easy to do.
If they set you up and if they added things to this chat transcript, have you considered taking them to court for defamation of character?
I am. I'm working on all of this right now with a lawyer. In fact, if you check out that website that I told you about, corruptedjustice.com, as we speak, there are 9 lawyers from 9 other people that there's going to be a joint action lawsuit against perverted justice. There's a lot of people going to be involved. They have ruined a lot of people's lives, a lot of innocent people's lives. Now, you know, a lot of people ask me if, you know, I think what they're doing is a good idea, and you know, it is, but they're going about it the wrong way, and they're harming a lot of innocent people that are not pedophiles or perverts. I've went on their website and I've read some of the conversations with some of the other people that they've done this to, and you know, those people deserve, you know, to get what they got. But at the same time, the way this website, Perverted Justice, goes about it is entirely wrong. They entrap you, they lie to you, and they do a lot of stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
Well, I certainly appreciate you coming forward with your side of the story here on the Bagpipe Report. I'm sure that this will be met much like your original incrimination with a lot of discussion online and through wrestling fans. Now, let's move back to the future. RF Video, what are you guys working on right now, and what are your aspirations in the future of the wrestling business? Are you going to get back involved in a promotion like Ring of Honor? Are you going to focus on RF Video, and what does RF Video have to offer from here?
Okay, well, right now I'm focusing on RF Video. I'm going to try to make this company as strong as ever. We're getting back to the level we were once at. In fact, I'd say we've over-succeeded that. And we have a lot of shoot interviews scheduled for the fall. And, you know, there's a lot of wrestling conventions coming up. We have made a lot of deals over the last couple of months with a lot of new wrestling promotions that are out there. A lot of wrestling promoters who have promotions, and there's 2 really big ones, in fact, have contacted me about wanting me and Doug to come into their company and try to do what we've done with Ring of Honor and help their companies. Mm-hmm. And one of them is, there's 2 of them, but one is a major company. And, you know, as of right now, I can't do anything, you know, like that, but it's an option for us. My main goal, honestly, is to get RF Video going, you know, even stronger than ever with our shoot interviews and filming the top indie shows across the country. But my main goal is, when the time is right, we want to start up another wrestling promotion. And, you know, a lot of the fans out there know that I was responsible, along with Doug, for, you know, everything you see right now in Ring of Honor. So it can be done once again. And we have a couple other people that are going to be involved in this project. And we already have a concept of what we want to do. I think it's going to be something that's never really been done before here in the United States. It's going to be different. It's not going to be the same old, you know, wrestling. It's going to be a new concept, and I think it's going to really work, and I think the fans are really going to appreciate what we have to offer.
Well, the controversial figure, Rob Feinstein, thank you very much for coming here on the Bagpipe Report and giving your candid side to one of the biggest stories this year. Best of luck with RF Video, which continues to be one of the biggest tape trader over in the U.S. with tapes from all over the world. And we will talk to you again. Take care.
Hey, thanks, man, for having me.
Okay, joining us right now, we have one of the most influential men in British wrestling and also one of the most influential wrestlers. It is Alex Shane. Just last Sunday night, he went head-to-head with Steve Corino in a hardcore bloodbath. You'll be seeing that right here on TWC in the upcoming weeks. It's a great match. The crowd really gets into it. It should be a lot of fun. I was there to see it in person and had a lot of fun with it. On the phone is Alex Shane. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. I'm in between a zillion and one phone calls to press and media people all up and down the country. The real talking point coming out of Hot Wired for me wasn't so much the Corino thing. It was actually the incident with Danny Williams, which has been getting the most press at the moment. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even though I came up short in some people's eyes against Steve Corino, personally, I feel that I held myself in a very professional manner. I did the best job I could in there, you know, and so I don't feel like I lost, so to speak, but I really feel that I gained more than I lost that night by getting that incident with Danny Williams.
Mm-hmm. Well, coming up, of course, we've got the big one-on-one match for the FWA Championship. It will be you versus Doug Williams. When is this match coming up, and what can we expect from it? Well,
I mean, technically, the match, after losing to Steve Corino, that doesn't make me a number one contender for that title. Mm. So, I mean, that's the direction the company seems to be going in with me and Doug. Mm. Obviously, you know, there's going to have to be a good offer on the table for Doug to accept it. Right. You know, but personally, I think it's a match that people will want to see. Myself and Doug started on the same day in wrestling at the same wrestling school, which is pretty strange when you think about the different ways our careers have both gone.
Yeah.
But the way I feel about it, I just think that it's a match that we've never done on the FWA, and we are such polar opposites in British wrestling. He's the solid technical wrestler. He's a wrestler's wrestler. I'm an entertainment-based wrestler. I think it's a match that will definitely draw. So, in my eyes, British Uprising 3 would be the ideal location for such a match.
Well, we certainly look forward to that. Now, both you and Doug, of course, are well known for your talents in front of the camera, but behind it, I noticed myself being there as a guest at the FWA show, the amount of work that must go into it between the announcers, the commentators, the backstage tapings, the vignettes that you have, wrestlers talking about their matches coming up, several different camera angles, a great lighting system. Just how much work, how many weeks, and how many people does it take to put a show like that together, a TV taping like Hot Wired?
Well, I mean, that was actually quite a small show compared to some of the ones that we've been involved in, like Revival, British Uprising, Frontiers of Honour. The thing that made that show a lot harder for me was I was actually in Canada for 12 days before the event. I flew back from Vancouver. I got back on Wednesday, literally had no sleep, went straight on the road for the ECW, the company in Scotland, and then came back on the Saturday, did a TV taping in Morecambe, went down to Broxbourne on the Sunday. So, I mean, a lot of wrestlers do that kind of schedule all the time, but to actually wrestle and promote is very difficult. So, I mean, the main word is delegation. That's the order of the day at the moment. It's something I never did before, and it was very difficult because because people knew I was behind FWA to such an extent. A lot of the backlash from any things that went wrong would always be put in my direction. But anyone that was working for us or involved with us would tell you that I just didn't like to delegate jobs. Most people that are, quite strong-minded and
you want to have everything perfect, everything exactly the way you envision it.
And, if you could pick between delegating to 10 or, creating an army and cloning yourself, you definitely clone yourself because you want to know if things done correctly. But luckily, I'm surrounded by a lot of people who I trust, who I can delegate to and do know wrestling. But it's taken the years for the people around us to understand exactly what's needed. So, I mean, really, a lot of work goes into it, but I find it a lot easier now just because there are so many people involved in what we do. So it makes my life a lot easier.
Well, you've got a great crew. It's reflected in the quality of the show. Right now, of course, we've got a packed show tonight. I'm hoping that perhaps you'll come over here to Dublin and talk to us in person, talk to us about, because you've been so involved in British wrestling the last 10 years, and going forward, you look to be a big power in British wrestling as well. Would you perhaps come over and talk to us about it in the near future?
Well, I mean, I remember switching on the Bagpipe report, as I always do, and seeing Doug Williams on there, and I thought, how the hell did Doug Williams get on there? So by all means, this will rub it in the anarchist face once and for all, I think. So I definitely have to come over and do that.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here. That has been Alex Shane, the show stealer from the FWA over in England, right here on the Bagpipe Report. Thank you for talking to us tonight, and we hope to talk to you very soon.
No problem at all.
On the line right now, we have one of the most talented big men in the business. You'll recognize him from his great run in WWE. He's in the headlines right now for two different reasons. One, he headlined a big tour of England a couple of months ago for All-Star Wrestling. And number two, there's been a lot of rumors circulating that you're working some dark matches for WWE again recently. Gangrel, how are you?
I'm doing good. How's it over there? Are you in Ireland now?
Yeah, there's no blizzards, no hurricanes.
No hurricanes. We got a couple of them here. So if the phone goes out, you got to forgive me. It's going in and out with the weather here.
No problem. Are you guys safe and sound over there?
What's that?
Are you guys safe and sound?
We live up north. We're just bordered down up north of Tampa there. So.
Right. So your house isn't flying away yet.
Not yet. No. It's all right.
Well, for once we've got the better weather between the two, I suppose. Ireland versus Florida. Who thought we'd come out on top?
Yeah, you got the cold stuff over there.
Now, do you know of anybody else? Because, of course, a lot of guys in the business have places down in Florida. I think some of your old running mates, I think Edge might have one. Or
yeah, he's over in Town and Country. Christian's over in... they're all right over there. Edge, Christian's over there, Jericho. There's a lot of guys down here, yeah.
How are those guys getting hit by the weather?
I don't know. I haven't called them. I haven't been on the phone much because I've been trying to take care of you, but I'm sure they're getting the same thing. I'm getting a lot of water, a lot of power outage. They probably don't have power or anything where they're at. I'm still lucky I have power.
Well, with the luck of the Irish, we'll be able to keep you on the line for a few minutes anyway.
Luck of the Irish.
The first question I want to ask you about before we talk about England is WWE dark matches. You worked a couple of these recently, of course. Every time that's a high-profile gig. How did you get involved with that? Because you had a very strong run with them a couple of years ago.
Well, they just called up and were just checking in on me and asked me if I'd come do a couple of dark matches. The matches went well, but I don't know if it's like a little bit too heavy or something. I don't know what the deal was. They were talking about the Mordecai thing, and then the next week after the dark matches, I heard he was shipped back down to Ohio Valley. So I have no idea what they were thinking or what's going on.
Oh, so maybe
I just know they tell me to stay in the gym and stay getting in shape, drop the weight, you know.
Right.
That's all I really know. They keep me in riddles. You guys know more than I do reading the internet. I'll never know anything.
Do you find it strange at all? Because they have WWE has been kind of odd about weight in the past. Is that there's been a lot of very talented big guys, guys like Vader, for example, who weight really can complement a lot and do have decent conditioning for their size and all that. Blue Meanie is another example of a guy whose weight was part of his gimmick, for example.
Yeah, when he lost the weight, there went his gimmick.
There went his gimmick, and nobody's heard from him since on a national scale. And I have to say, I mean, all bias aside, I saw you in England a couple of months ago. I was on the road with you. I thought you looked great. You were big, but I thought you looked great, and I thought you moved great. Do you think...
Yeah, I'm saying about the same as that, but I think they're looking for those, you know, like the cookie cutters they got coming out of Ohio Valley. They all look the same, you know. They all cut up and really lean, in good shape guys. But I think they need to have different guys with different personalities and a different variety too, like you said, like with the Vaders and even like the Bigelows and all that. They really gave it a real spice and a good taste, you know. Gave you a little bit of everything to look at. Plus, it gave us chubby kids something to look forward to when we were kids watching it.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why so many guys from Ohio keep being brought up and put back, because they're brought up for their look, and then when it turns out they don't have the right charisma?
They're almost all exactly the same. Yeah, they're brought up and they're really nothing against them. I don't really know any of them, but they're, you know, there's a few like Eugene. He's a really great guy. He looks good. He came up with that gimmick, but yeah, but he's been wrestling hell like me, like 16 years or more, or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
But the other guys are all they're just so stereotyped. They look like they're kind of quite boring, I think, in my opinion. But then there's nothing personal against them, no disrespect. It's just but maybe that's what the deal is. I have no idea, but they come up, they disappear, they come up, they can't find something, they go away. But here I am. I'm just an old guy trying to get back in there, but you never know how things go. You know, it's all timing, being in the right place at the right time.
Well, when you were working with WWE before, you sustained a serious injury. You hurt your neck?
Yeah, I herniated my 5, 6, 7 disc, ruptured the 8th, bulged the 9th. I was out. I've torn a pec, torn my shoulder out. I was really very being in shape. I got hired when I was really like in shape like these guys were then, and also seemed to be was injury bound. And now that I'm back a little heavier, I'm a lot more comfortable in the ring and actually not getting hurt at all. You know, well, you see me, you're on the road. I was on the road 3 straight months. You know, and no, not an injury, just kept moving. You know, well, I had a bad back one day, but other than that, I mean, nothing major. You know.
You're just trying to think back to which injuries I heard of, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you now, you were touring around, you were headlining shows for All Star Wrestling for, it was 3 months around England. How did you like working around the area, and how do you find the fans in England compared to back in the U.S.?
Well, I like it real good because it's still like a territory there, you know. The people still, you know, buy into the angles, you know, if they would run any angles, Brian. But if they would ever run any angles. But they were still like a proper crowd, you know, real proper, like, and they're fun to work in front of. I hear they're a little bit different, you know. They've paid and they just want to yell at. They just come. They're proper wrestling crowd. That's all I can really say. I mean,
yeah. Well, something I found interesting in England is that in the U.S., a lot of crowds are, I don't like to use the term smart in this way, but they're very judgmental of wrestlers, whereas in the UK, I saw you go out every night, and one night you choose to be babyface, and people would be so into you, and the next night you'd want to piss people off, and they would hate you so much. It was like, no matter what their predisposition was, because they all knew who you were, they all bought their tickets to see you, within 2 minutes you had them believing whatever you wanted them to believe. Is that something that's being lost in the U.S.?
And Yeah, it does with all the smart crowds. That's basically what I was saying by them being a proper crowd in England. They're still not smart too much. They might be a little bit to some things, but they're not totally educated to everything. They still come to watch you wrestle. So, and that's the fun of wrestling, to be able to go out and be a babyface one night, and the next night go out there and get them to hate me, and the next night, if I want to, get them to come out there and love me again. It's kind of a powerful trip there. It's fun.
Now, I hear that you've been on your travels recently. I tried you a couple of weeks ago, and you were very, very far away. Where have you been?
Since I've seen you, I've been in Korea, Guam. I don't know. I've been all over. I don't know. I was in California a lot lately, and
I was thinking more of Guam as being a more interesting territory, but
I think I head off. The next I'll probably be I'll be in Germany, Hanover, or something for that tournament.
A question I want to ask is that you've had a very in the public eye, your relationship with Luna Vachon has been out there, and you guys have been together for how long? 10 years?
Oh, no, longer than 10 years. About we've been married since '94, so we've been together about 15 years. 15, yeah.
How do you do it in a business like wrestling, especially when, sometimes you guys are working the same shows, but more often than not, you're on the road with WWE for 6 months at a time, or she's on the road with WWE, or on the other part of the world.
Well, it's not a picnic. It's something you have to work at. It's not the easiest thing to survive a marriage in wrestling. Actually, I have thought about writing a book about surviving a marriage, Luna Vachon, and pro wrestling. Surviving Luna Vachon. But just because she won't get off her butt and write a book because she doesn't want to embarrass somebody, probably me. But no, it's not easy. You got to work at it, because you do spend a lot of time away, and a lot of things happen. And in show business and in wrestling, a lot of things are thrown at you. You're put in a lot of weird positions, And,
yeah.
But we're coming through. We've had good times, great times. We've had some bad times, and we're on the upswing now. Things are looking quite bright for us now. So.
Well, that's terrific. You guys actually wrestled. Stop me if I'm wrong here. You guys.
Please don't bring that black wedding match up, dude.
Uh-oh. I wasn't going to comment on the quality of the match. I was simply going to talk about the promotion.
Oh, the promotion. Okay. That match was kind of weird. They just threw it out there. Who knows what the hell a black wedding match was when you've been married 10 years or so when we did that tour. But
yeah.
And they just left it out there. They were just too busy worried about the top match. They didn't even tell us what the deal was with that.
Mm-hmm.
That promotion was kind of weird. If you got little Andrew McManus was like a little girl. If you got him upset, he cried and stuff like that. Of course, Luna speaks her mind, and I think that's where that ended right there. So.
Well, thank you for answering the question I had to ask. That's fantastic. And of course, those guys, they had a lot of big guys in, like Bret Hart, Scott Steiner. They had Sting.
Bret Hart was great. He was great. He was really cool when he was in.
Mm-hmm.
Steiner, he was good. He was just getting ready to go back to WWF or something at the time.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Did you think that this company, because they went in with both barrels blazing, they brought in commentary teams from WCW, they brought in pretty much all the free agents, including yourself, Bret Hart, Sting. Did you think there's a future in it? Or, yeah. Did you think there's a future? Did you know from the get-go that this was a guy who was out to spend a lot of money?
I think if they didn't run it on such a high budget and they just controlled their budget a little bit and brought in maybe a few different guys and maybe not some of the other guys, they probably could have been all right,
Mm-hmm.
They just, I think they overshot their budget and probably killed themselves in the long run, money-wise, Because they're putting us up in, like, 5-star hotels. I'm telling you, man, like Star City and all these. I mean, we stayed, like, I was like going, what are these guys, thinking? They're putting, give me a Motel 6 or,
Hey, I slept in an airport last night. I don't want to hear about your Motel 6 complaints.
Yeah, well, I slept in 1, 3, 4. Wait, well, no, that was 5 weeks ago in LaGuardia. But no, but they just if they would just cut back their budget, I'm sure they'd have been all right. But they just overshot their budget, I think. Nothing against Brett, he's very expensive. Steiner doesn't come cheap,
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on NWA TNA? Because a lot of people say they're kind of doing the same thing, except that they've been fortunate with the backers they've had that have kept financing them, but that they're not self-sustained yet.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. They're weird, They're just they're struggling. I think that Jared's got a lot of money lost out in that, and they're just trying to get it back any way they can. They got backers and stuff, but I think they're just trying to hold on to that the best they can. And I don't know what's going to go on with Ted Turner if his no compete clause is up pretty soon. I hear rumors, and I'm sure you've probably heard more than I have about.
We've heard bits here and there. Have you heard from guys about potentially something starting up there?
I've heard. I've heard heard some gossip, but I never heard anybody say anything for sure about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I hear a lot of gossip about it, A lot of hope. I think a lot of people are hoping because if he opens back up, then he opens the market back up, then there's competition, and the storylines will get better. They won't just give you,
That's
WWE won't, they'll be forced to give you a competitive story angle, because of the storylines, there'll be writers' jobs, the money will go up for the wrestlers, and I think that the whole overall shows will come up because everybody's competing. They know if they don't do good, if they're not getting done right in WWE, that they have a chance to go to WWE or Ted Turner's group. That they're going to try to look as best as they can in WWE and be professional, so it'll make the work level so much better with the competition. And
right.
so hopefully that takes off, but who knows? But did you want to talk to Luna at all?
Yeah, I'd love to, actually. In fact, just before I let you go, let me ask you one quick question. I saw both you guys on a poster down in Cork for, I think it was October 2nd, and there's no phone number, no name for promotion or anything. Are you guys meant to be over here?
I was supposed to be going to Ireland, or it was talked to me about going to Ireland, but it never got confirmed or secured or anything, so I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, so October 2nd is October 2nd. I don't know where I am. I know somewhere around the second weekend in October on, I'm in Germany for the old Auto One tournament thing near Hanover. For Christian Eckstein runs it now.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck with your upcoming bookings. We'll continue to talk about them here because, as I said, I don't like to. It's not worth saying unless it's true because then no one believes it. But earlier this year, I had the chance to work with you on the road, and you're in great condition, and you put on a great show. And anybody who gets a chance to see Gangrel on the road, buy a ticket. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you, Blake. And I'm going to turn you over to Luna now, so you can do your Q&A or whatever it is with her.
You bet.
Okay, take care, Blake.
Take care of yourself, man.
Hello, alive and awake, Blake.
Hey, Luna, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, sir. Despite this heavy wind, I'm doing really good.
It hasn't blown you away yet?
It's blown it this way and that way, and we're stuck in the middle.
Are you over the worst of it yet, or are you...
No, the winds are coming back and hitting us, so it's like being hit by another hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to live in this.
might as well be the tough guys.
Well, it's nice to hear from you. What are the questions you have for me?
Yeah, we got an email from a fan in Washington a few weeks ago, and actually I called a couple of times and finally got a hold of you because you guys are really busy. Monica in Washington really likes your work. She's been a big fan of your work for a long time, and she's been wondering what have you been up to since you last worked with WWE, and if you're going to be coming back and doing a full-time wrestling gig again, or if you're focusing on other things.
I'm kind of focused on other things, mainly keeping the vampire out there on the road. I'm doing a little bit with Athletes International Ministries. That's like what Ted DiBiase's involved in, and I'm mainly pimping that vampire.
Well, you're doing quite a job because it sounds like he's going far and wide.
Well, I know where he'll be on the 2nd and the 3rd of October. He'll be in Ottawa, Ontario, and London, Ontario.
Oh, really?
And Providence, I guess that's the capital of Canada, right?
Mm-hmm. Listen, Luna, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Anything else you'd like to say to fans out there who've been into you for the years and wondering how you're doing?
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for being a fan of the sport of kings and gentlemen. I've been so blessed to be in this sport and to come out the other side of it like I have, and pretty much smiling most of the time. And just thanks for helping us to want to do this sport that sometimes isn't all that wonderful to our bodies and to our minds and to our bank accounts, but we keep going, and it's because of the great fans that are behind us that we keep going. So thanks to the fans, and thanks to the people like you, Blake, that still keep the fans informed.
Well, thank you very much, Lou. Well, listen, best luck to you guys as you face the storm, and we will talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Alive and awake.
That was Gangrel and Luna Vachon from over in Florida on the Bagpipe Report, talking about some of their upcoming activities, whether in WWE, England, Singapore, Japan, up in Canada, wherever they are. They put on a really good show, so when you get the chance, do check them out. Okay, on the line we have now from Germany. We've gone east. Normally we go west to the U.S. This time we're going east over to Germany. On the line we have the Slam Wrestling Hall of Famer Joe E. Legend. You'll know him from his runs in WWE, NWA, TNA, and just about every damn country on the face of the planet. Last weekend, or the week before last, in fact, he wrestled back-to-back matches with Doug Williams for the FWA over in England. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How's everything going over there?
We are doing great. Now, how were the shows with Doug, the FWA, last weekend? How'd you enjoy that?
I was really, really impressed. I've been working mostly for All-Star Wrestling in England.
Brian Dixon's crowd?
Yeah, for a couple of years, and then Org Williams and a few others. And I enjoy the style, of course. But FWA, they're really kind of cultivating to a newer audience, whereas Brian's maintaining his audience.
Right.
I have nothing against what Brian's doing. I think Brian knows what he's doing, and he knows what he wants to achieve. And FWA is making great strides to achieve something a little bit different, which I really like.
What's the difference for you in terms of, because I know your name is actually quite synonymous with All-Star, I've done a lot of work with them. For you, what's the difference between working with the two promotions when you go to work? What are the differences?
Well, Brian's a little more traditional. Brian's a little more traditional in he likes having the kids there. He likes gearing the thing more towards the kids, and that you can see that in the product. There's a little more showing out. There's a little more playing with the kids in the crowd. FWA is more for the hardcore fan, not necessarily chairs and ill-tempered piranhas and buckets to dunk people in, but just it's more for the hardcore fan who really knows their holds, knows knows the history of the business, and has some idea of what the future is. People who buy the tapes. I mean, if you go to FWA show, you see guys selling tapes from all over the world in the front lobby. So I think at FWA, their style is more for fans who are really, on the internet every day checking things out. Just more, I guess, a more knowledgeable fan, whereas Brian's is more for the passing fan.
You've wrestled extensively in this part of the world, in Western Europe, and you've also wrestled extensively outside it. Can you tell us some of the various exotic countries that you have performed in over the last few years?
Let's see here. Okay, Canada, the States, England, Ireland, Scotland, Switzerland, Wales, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Austria, Japan.
Wow.
Shoot, there's a few more. Puerto Rico.
When you started off in the business, did you intend to wind up being this global traveler? Because really your name, most people are associated with one given promotion or one given region, whereas you've had great success. You've worked, we'll talk about NWA, TNA shortly, also worked for WWE, but you've been all over the world. Is that something you take pride in, or is it something that just happened to happen?
A little from column A, a little from column B. I like the idea of the security. When I got my first deal with WWF at the time, to me that was just like, wow, stability. I don't have to be on the phone all the time, hustling for work and calling friends and calling in favors and stuff like that. I mean, it was nice to just know, okay, I'm just going to get my schedule every week and I just go, and the money was great.
Yeah.
But truthfully, I love the world travel. I was always hoping to be able to see a lot of the world, and actually I just got confirmed today I'm going to Nigeria very shortly at the beginning of October. I've not been there before. I've been to South Africa, but never there. And it's and just another new place to see. I was in Switzerland yesterday.
Really?
And I'm going back in 3 weeks. They're having a huge show called On Fire 4, and they're bringing in Jeff Jarrett and I forget who. Dallas Page is coming in.
All right.
And they're doing this is going to be their WrestleMania. So
Well,
I mean, I'm happy to be part of big shows for smaller companies, and I like being able to go around and do my thing. I like the fact that for what I'm doing, I prefer to go out there and be myself as opposed to going to WWE and
Being a
they take
prescribed
you and they make
character,
you, like Just Joe, which was the most garbage gimmick ever in the company, or TNA, where they start me off as a wrestler in a main program with Jeff, cut the legs out from under me, and turn me into a security guard.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about global travel, of course, it sounds easy, but between language barriers and going to different countries where there's different products available, different gyms, different... what's the biggest challenge for you in being on the road? Is it nutrition? Is it green cards and visas? What is it?
No, for the most part, the companies handle the visas. I know Russia was one of the hardest, just the consulate. I mean, people were just rude. I wish I could be more nice about it, but... they're just rude. I mean, even when I was there,
Really?
the majority of the people, until they found out you were a wrestler, or at least until they found out I was Canadian and not American, just rude.
Really?
And the food there, I mean, first I loved going to Russia. I'm supposed to be going back in November, and I'm excited because I love the history. I love, the being a tourist. And the crowd was great at the wrestling show. The company treated us well. But I'm going to bring more protein shakes and protein bars this time because the food just did not agree with me.
Right,
so nutrition is a big problem. Like going to England, it's just so much fried stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you live there, you're used to it. It's not a big deal. But if you're not used to it, it can really get to you, you know.
And now, other guests. Actually, we had Gangrel on last week, who was talking. He's a wonderful guy, and hopefully hasn't been blown away in Florida yet. But
oh God.
It's pretty tough over there here, but he was talking a bit about how in the U.S., because wrestling is so overexposed over there, fans' expectations are not only extremely high, but at times they're unreasonable towards the hardcore would-be. That's a bit of an editorial comment, but most guys I've talked to find it true. I find it true. Do you find it at all easier to perform in other countries? Are the fans more appreciative of wrestling and more willing to go along with what you're doing than when you're working in the U.S.?
Every territory is different. I mean, like with Russia, I would lock up with a guy, grab a headlock, and say, ooh. And the guy takes my arm and, like they were acting like I just did the most graceful, high-flying move ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think part and parcel of the problem in the States is, and this isn't to take the mickey out of guys in the X division, and if it's TNA or cruiserweights otherwise, but they've kind of raised the bar as far as how much they'll kill themselves. A lot of guys go out there and do things like, try to take these Mick Foley bumps in order to draw attention to themselves because they don't have a good body and they're always wearing T-shirts and jeans, or because they can't work. I mean, truth be told, it can't be that bad because you've got a guy like The Rock. The Rock worked hard. There's no question. I'm a huge fan of his work.
Mm-hmm.
He worked hard, but he worked smart. He's a guy who, at 50, 60 years old, he's going to be able to run in a park with his grandkids and not be in abject agony.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, guys like, like Jeff Hardy, I mean, God bless the guy. I love him. He's a great guy. But he's cultivated his audience in such a way that if he were just to go out there and wrestle a match, they'd sit on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
He has to go up there and do crazy dives because that's what people have ultimately paid to see from Jeff Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's key for most guys, it's not so much the industry making them do it, it's these guys making themselves, marketing themselves as suicidal. And once you're marketed as suicidal, that's what you have to deliver if you expect to get paid.
Do you think WWE is regretting that in the late 90s they really fostered this, the whole ECW style that came along in the ladder matches, and they sort of jumped on that bandwagon, and now it's really kind of a situation where we had a ladder match just a couple of days ago at the pay-per-view and all that, and it doesn't seem to mean that much anymore, but it is a lot harder to sell a legit wrestling match than it was about 10 years ago. Do you think WWE regrets ever going down that line and desensitizing fans to more traditional wrestling, real wrestling, unquote, the style that you do, Triple H does, Chris Benoit does?
Not necessarily, because, I mean, for everything they did with the TLC matches and stuff, they also took the hardcore division and turned it into a complete joke.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that whole division, in my opinion, was developed to go out of the way to make sure people thought of hardcore wrestling as simply something to laugh at.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why you had the 24/7 rule, which is why Crash Holly, God rest his soul, always did kind of comedy sketches and would lose his belt 6 times in a show and keep winning it back by the end of the day, running away.
So do you think it was WWE's way of basically just
phasing
belittling
out
that style and making sure it doesn't catch on? That's an interesting thought. I've never heard that interpretation of it.
No, I think that's what they did, and I think that. But then you had guys like Edge and Christian, who were 2 very good friends of mine, going out there and they have such unbelievable matches like those TLC matches.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings fans back to it. If anything, WWE, I guess, maybe puts too many of those matches on a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what might dilute it in the fans' eyes. If they were to have one TLC match a year and it was an annual event, it would be spectacular. Just like they do. I think they only do the Cell once a year, right?
It's in and around once a year. Yeah, they keep it at that.
Yeah, keep it as special, and the matches will seem special.
Mm-hmm.
Do it all the time, and they become commonplace, and then you've got to go that much farther to shock people.
Right. You worked for Andrew McManus, did you?
Yes.
WWA. What were your thoughts on that promotion? Because at the time, there was a lot of waves simply because he brought in so many big names and put out so much money to bring in Sting, Bret Hart, Scott Steiner, these kind of guys. What was your impression of him as a promoter, and did you ever feel that was going to be a launching point?
I was really hoping it would. They treated us fantastically. The only problem with it is that Andrew McManus is a rock promoter. And I guess my biggest gripe with Andrew is that he booked that Kiss and Symphony concert from Melbourne,
right?
And didn't invite me. That upsets me so much. Andrew treated us really well. He was a wrestling fan more than he was a wrestling businessman, which I think is why he brought in so many names. He just wanted to be around all these guys we'd watched and admired on TV for so long. But he really didn't know, I don't think, what he wanted to get booked out of it.
Right.
He wanted to make sure Sting performed because he thinks, well, in my mind, if I saw his name on a card, I'd pay.
Right.
If I saw this name, if I saw that name. I'm not sure he knew what he wanted to follow up with. I was hoping it would launch into something, especially when he did several pay-per-views. I would have expected him to bottom out after the first one. If the first one didn't draw, okay, it's back, where's Kiss playing? I was hoping it would go further. It gave me the opportunity to really sit down and talk to Bret Hart at length, which I'd always wanted to do. And it was well worth it, even if I didn't get paid, which I did. It would have been worth it just to have that time to hang out with Bret Hart and, just let him talk my ear off. Absorbed every word out of the guy's mouth. I just wish that I wish it would have been another option.
You were, when you started out early in your career, you worked with a lot of guys who made it. Edge, Christian, you already mentioned. I believe you worked with Rhino fairly early in your career as well, did you?
Yeah. We used to go down to Detroit, which is about 4 hours drive from Toronto.
Right.
And Rhino was working out of there constantly. I was there when he got his name. He used to be known as what the heck was his name? Terry Richards. That's what they were calling him. And we were just in the locker room one day, and D'Lo was there. And he said, you know what, you're too big to be just a Terry Richards. Terry Richards, he sells pizza. You need a name. If you look like a Rhino, you're a big beast, you're a strong guy, you got a good look, you should be a Rhino. And he went with Rhino Richards, and next thing you know, ECW signs him, takes off the Richards part so he won't be associated with Stevie Richards.
Right.
And, away they go. Rhino's the guy who got me booked in Europe the first time for Otto Vance in '98.
Well, that's very cool.
Well, it's very cool because that's where I met my wife. So.
Well, that's very, very helpful.
Yes.
What do you think, from your experience then, is having seen guys like Edge and Christian and Rhino very early in their careers, what is it that makes those guys that are currently earning a good paycheck in WWE against other guys that you've been around that have been wrestling 10 or 15 years that have yet to get that kind of living? And most people in this business never will. Fans seem to take for granted when you get a good slot or good work or work for a good promotion, but there's so many people out there and it's so hard. What is it that these guys had that other people out there don't right now?
I think each guy brings his own thing to the table. With Rhino, I think when you watch him, there isn't a guy on Raw or SmackDown who works with more intensity. He looks like he's out there to mangle somebody. And he's got a mean look about, even though he's the most kind-hearted guy you ever met. You should see him with his daughter. I mean, the guy is a teddy bear. But he looks like a killer. There's something about Edge, as they call it, an X factor. If I'm sitting in a room with my back to the door and he walks in the room, you almost have to go, who the heck just came in? And turn around to see who it is.
Right.
He just has a star quality about him. Christian, I think, is one of the top 3 workers in the company, if not in the world. I think he's tremendous. Really? And he's been shortchanged a lot. He's a guy who works hard. He diets hard. He diets a lot harder than me, I'll tell you that. He has a passion for the industry. He's got a great mind for everything that he wants to accomplish. He could go out there with a chair. He's kind of like, in a way, like Flair, where he could go out there, with a pencil and do 25 minutes and have the crowd on their feet. I think Christian has probably the strongest work ethic I've ever seen. And I think that's ultimately, finally, won him over with The Office.
Okay, let me stop you there, Joe. It's just coming up on 10 to the hour, 10 to 9. We're going to take a quick commercial break and come back with the Q&A and the competition. So you have yourself a great week. We're going to come back with you next week, talk about NWA TNA, some great dirt from WWE and more. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.
We're now going to return to our conversation with Joe E. Legend, a global traveler, a 15-year veteran, who is going to take us inside WWE and NWA TNA. Now, you went to WWE shortly after Edge and Christian went there in the late 90s. You had the Just Joe gimmick, which you touched on. How did you get picked up with them, and what were your initial hopes when you went to WWE or WWF as it was then?
Initially, I was in touch with Jim Cornette, and I'd sent stuff to him. He talked to me about coming to Smoky Mountain, and Smoky Mountain folded, and I kind of kept in touch. He got me a dark match at Skydome, which is kind of cool because it was like 44,000 people. It's my first time with the company.
It's a pretty good dark match.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was just weird because the room was so big that I'd hit a big move and I'd hear nothing. I thought, that was a good move. These people aren't popping on anything. But then 30 seconds later, ooh, takes so long for the sound to echo in. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But I basically kept in touch with the company after that, and then Michael Hayes was with the Hardys, and they pulled the Hardys off of him to go their separate way, and Hayes had talked to the office about wanting to start a new Freebirds. And my name came up to be the Terry Gordy of the new Freebirds.
All right.
So it was me, Reckless Youth, and one other guy. I'd heard several names. Scott Vick was the most prominent one. So they brought me in for a camp. Mike, loved me at the camp, so they signed me. And it took them about 7 months to get my visa, though I don't know why, because I don't even have a parking ticket. But by the time I came to TV, Mike had decided he didn't want to be an on-camera performer anymore. He was just happy with his agent job and agenting tag matches, which he's a genius for.
Right.
So then I guess they kind of had no real idea of what to do. And I had a meeting with Vince. I'd thrown a couple ideas by him, and then it eventually came down to being like a paid informant. I mean, I wanted to do a thing where I was a cult leader, and he said, no, I don't really want to go the kind of religious route. And I'm like, okay, Brother Love, corporate ministry, Brother Devon, sure, you don't want to do religious at all. I threw by a thing where I wanted to do a thing called the moral majority, where I cut my hair and tell everybody, clean up their lives, and it was basically to take a leak on Generation X.
Right.
And he said, no, I don't think that'll fly. And then 2 weeks later, the Right to Censor came out.
Right.
So things like that kind of grated on me a little bit.
Right.
Then they gave this paid informant thing to this guy, Jamie. I forget his last name, but he's an incompetent. And he just came up with the Just Joe thing and ran me into the ground. I'd hoped to have a much better spot with the company. I'd hoped to be working with a lot of really good guys, and I wound up just being a backstage stooge with nothing going on. And I knew as soon as I did the second vignette for that gimmick, I was like talking to the outwriters saying, look, this is going nowhere, and I can see the writing on the wall. I'm going to be out of a job inside of a year. And they kept giving me the, no, don't worry about it. And I mean, I'd ask Shane McMahon, and he's like, no, we love your work. Maybe this isn't the right thing for you. We'll find something. Then they bought WCW, had an overload of guys they wanted to push, and started cutting costs on the bottom. I happened to be on the bottom.
When you're in there, do you think it was simply a case where if someone with more seniority had made the suggestion, as you've illustrated yourself, obviously believed that it wasn't a gimmick that was the problem, but you weren't being listened to because they've used the types of gimmicks that you've suggested. Do you think it's a situation where if you'd been with the company longer or if you were someone else, they would have accepted it?
I think basically anybody needs somebody in the office going to bat for them.
Right.
I didn't have that. You'll notice when Rhino came in, Paul E. had a really strong voice in the office.
Right.
And he was pushed to the moon. He pinned The Rock.
Yeah.
I think he pinned him in Detroit, his hometown, which is even,
even better, yeah.
bigger. I mean, that's a babyface push for a guy who's a monster heel.
Right.
And, U.S. champion, and he's doing programs with Jericho and Kurt Angle. Once Paul E. got ousted, there he is losing to Scotty 2 Hotty on Jacked and Metal or whatever the current low-rent shows are.
Right.
I think that's proof positive. A guy that talented is on the bottom simply because he didn't have a voice in the office talking for him. It's not due to a lack of talent or ambition on his part. It's due to a lack of voice.
During the latter stages of your being under contract to WWF, were you working for them regularly, or what was your daily life like when the character wasn't working out but you were still with them?
Well, I signed up in '99, September of '99. They brought me in June of 2000, and I worked till basically December. I kept talking to Jamie, right, saying, please, I've got some ideas that, I think will work that'll actually advance this. And his response was always, no, don't worry about it, I got it covered. He'd almost take offense if somebody wanted to give him ideas, because then he felt like you were stepping on his toes or something. So eventually I went around him to Brian Gershwitz. I said, listen, Brian, I'm dying here. I've got to do something. I'm sitting on my hands. I'm just going to be fired, and I'm going to kick myself for not doing something. So I wrote a character, kind of like a horror movie villain, where it kind of played off the Just Joe thing, where he's a nice guy to everybody, and everybody treats him like garbage. So one day he snaps and starts stabbing everybody in the face.
Well, that would certainly be controversial.
Well, yeah, just going off my nut. Basically, I'm, trying to be nice to the Undertaker, and Undertaker treats me like a punk and choke slams me. So I start losing my mind off stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I just want to kill everyone. Mm-hmm. Start hanging people in the back. Mm-hmm. Brian loved it. He passed it on to Jim Ross. Jim Ross said he loved it. They sent me to Memphis. They said, we want you to develop it down in Memphis.
Right.
Which I didn't really want to do, but I did. And Memphis was just awful. They had no clue what they were doing down there. For a developmental territory that had an hour of TV every week and probably 12 WWE developmental guys there, you had about 8 minutes of WWE talent on their TV, and the rest was local guys who couldn't work.
Right. So you think being down there, they didn't do enough to give you whatever direction it was that they wanted you to take?
I was there 3 months. I wasn't on TV once.
Did they come to you at all about developing the character after you went down there?
That was the whole thing. When I got there, I went right to Randy Hales, who was the head guy. I said, is that what we're going to accomplish? I was told I'd have a certain amount of creative control since I'd kind of devised this gimmick, and I'd like to discuss stuff with you and make sure that we're both on the same page. Mm-hmm. He was like, yeah, great, and then he ignored everything. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get over with Terry Golden, who was the other guy there, was to make sure you went out and got absolutely, I was going to swear there, really drunk with him on the weekends, so that during the week at the gym he could make fun of you for throwing up at his house. But since I don't drink, that threw me right out of the equation.
Right, right.
It's very much, as I've said before, it's not a what you know, but a who you know business and who you get along with.
Yeah.
And most of the guys down there were either partiers or, and I have no problem with people who like to party and go out and drink and do that, but it's just not my thing. I think a lot of guys get offended around that because they start to second-guess their own choices. Mm-hmm. And I think, that made Terry Golden feel self-conscious.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's certainly not a good thing to do in that situation.
No, but...
when you finished up with WWE, what was it like in your life? What was the feeling having spent essentially 2 years being that close to having an opportunity to have a really great career and having it not quite happen for you?
Oh, frustrating. I was furious.
What
but,
was
I'd done everything I could. I mean, every stupid asinine thing they'd given me, I'd taken even though I was gritting my teeth behind it, I took it with a smile on my face. I never argued. Everybody told me, just make sure you do what you're told, and eventually the opportunities will come, and then they didn't come. Mm-hmm. So more than anything, I was just kicking myself for not at least mouthing off. At least if I'd mouthed off and spoke my piece, I'd have some kind of satisfaction of at least I did what I could to try and better things, and I didn't. And I regret that on myself. I don't regret that on them. But I was in England 5 days later, full time, after I left there. So I wasn't like, oh my God, what am I going to do for a living? Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine who worked in England, Germany, and Japan for years, Tony Sinclair, I called him and just said, Tony, you know where I can head? He goes, yeah, I'll make a call for you. Within an hour, I was booked in England.
Then later on, you wound up with NWA TNA. You came in very promisingly. It seemed to be a rejuvenation in your career. You did win the tag team titles there, but it was very quick before you turned into a member of the Red Shirt Security, which I don't think anybody really ever interpreted as a go somewhere style of gimmick. How did you get introduced to TNA, and what were your initial impressions there versus WWE? I'm sure you were more cautious with them.
Well, I'd gone and worked for the WWA, and they brought Jeff in just for the pay-per-view. And Mike Sanders was already down there. A bunch of the guys there were already with TNA, and they're like, Joe, you got to come down there. It'll be great. And a really good friend of mine, Scott D'Amore, was in the office and booking stuff. He's like, Joe, we got to get you back in North America. And I'm like, great. So when I saw Jeff, I was like, Jeff, who do I talk to about TNA? He's like, me. You're in, guaranteed. It's like, great. So he said, give me a call in January, because this was December when I saw him. He said, give me a call in January, and we'll make arrangements, and then, you can come in. I said, well, listen, man, I live in Germany right now. If I'm moving halfway around the world, I need some guarantees here. He said, don't worry, everything will be fine. If you move, I will make it worth your while. Financially, it'll be great. It'd be a good push. I really like your work, blah, blah, blah. So January, I called him and couldn't get a hold of him for about 2 weeks. Never returned a call. I finally got through to somebody in the office, and they said, oh, well, Jeff's been busy, and we want to put you on the list. I was like, what list? I committed to coming in. What's going on here? So they said, well, let me call you back. And then I got a call from Puerto Rico, from IWA, and they're like, yeah, we want you to come down here. So I talked to TNA and said, look, if you can't offer me something right now, I'm going to Puerto Rico for 3 months. So that's what I did. And they said, don't worry, as soon as you're done with Puerto Rico, you'll come in here. So at the end of Puerto Rico, I did another tour for WWA. We did Australia, New Zealand. And I saw Jeff there again. He's like, don't worry, as soon as you get to Canada, we're going to start you up. It's going to be great. And I went about 2 weeks after I got home from back to Canada from New Zealand. I went down for my first kind of gig with TNA. Everybody there, you know, very polite, very nice, put me over, you know, probably a little more than they should, but really nice. And put me in a program with Jeff, which I thought was really positive, until he snaked me. We'd had a match set up where I was going to beat him. I was supposed to hit him with a bat while Vince Russo had the ref drawn. I hit him with the bat in 1, 2, 3. Basically, Jeff came up to me earlier in the day and said, if we need about 15 minutes, let me know what we're doing. He disappears. I'm like, okay. So about an hour later, he comes back. I lay out his entire match for him. He goes, great, just give it to the production team so they can get the cameras in position. I did just that. But less than 10 minutes before match time, Jeff came to me and said, we got to shorten the match. The show's running 15 minutes too long. I said, okay, what do we got? Like, if we had 15, what do we got, like 7? He says, no, we got 3.
Oh, God.
I was like, 3 minutes? He goes, yeah, so we'll just go right into the comeback and then hit me with the bat in 1, 2, 3. I said, that's going to do nothing for me.
Right.
So that's not going to put any steam on me. And you and I have a return match next week. Who's going to care? All the heat's on Vince. There's nothing on me.
Right.
You could have been hit by a grandmother in the 3rd row. Nobody would care. No, trust me, we'll make it up next week. I said, okay. Did the match. After the show, production guy comes up, what the heck happened? What are you talking about? He says, we had a whole thing. We had the cameras ready to go in the right positions for everything for that, and then you did 3 minutes. I said, Jeff told me we were running 15 minutes late. He said, the whole show ran 10 minutes short. Which tells me Jeff didn't want to sell and lose.
So,
and after that, that's when I started going, well, things are a little snaky here. And then they hired Dutch Mantell, who totally bottomed me out.
Did Dutch not like your work?
Well, I worked for him in Puerto Rico. He was like the head booker there.
Yeah, for
and
years.
they pushed me with their secondary belt, the Intercontinental belt.
Right.
I had a good little run with that. And, you know, after every match, Dutch, what'd you think? And for the most part, he goes, it was good. Fine, I'm happy with it. Great. And I worked a program with Abyss on my way out. And we did Bayamon, which is like the best city. We do like 6,000. They're just crazy fans. And we went in and did a false finish, which Dutch, I think, thought was the finish. And the whole place, 1, 2, oh, when I kicked out. And Dutch was apparently furious that that wasn't the finish. Then we went on and we got a finish which was just as strong. And he complained to me about it. I said, well, I think it was fine, but sorry, next time I'll just do your way. But it never came to where we were, you know, cursing each other out backstage. But truthfully, I think he's gutless, because I know of a couple situations where he's snaked people out behind their backs. And now I know from friends who've talked to him that he snaked me out behind my back, but he hasn't had the guts to speak to me, even on the phone. He can't get smacked talking to me on the phone. In person, I'd gladly smack him. But I think he's a gutless coward.
Do you feel that the situation with you and Jeff might have been had something to do with Dutch, or did he not come in until well after that?
I've heard a lot of people say that Jeff really likes me and it's Dutch who's down on me. Maybe that's the case, but Dutch wasn't there when Jeff snaked me on that match. And if Jeff really likes me, I mean, he is above Dutch in the pecking order.
Right.
So if Jeff really likes me, he can say, well, you know what, I think we should use Joe better. And he didn't.
Right. So you think that it mightn't have been a situation where Jeff in any way wanted to do less with you, but you think he just let it happen because he didn't push strongly enough for you to be pushed?
I don't think it would have taken a strong push to do something with me. Every time I went out, I got a good reaction. I know Jeff didn't like it. I went out one of the few times they gave me the mic, which is one of my strong points, I think. I went out, got on the mic, and I had the crowd absolutely crazy the entire time. Everything I wanted them to do, they did, without even realizing that I kind of goaded them into it. I guess afterwards they think about it, go, yeah, of course we knew, but at the time they didn't. Everything went perfectly where I had the crowd exactly where I wanted them the entire time. It starts off with a thing I just, no, 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 and the whole crowd goes, yes, yes, yes. It works every time, and it always gets them on the opposite side of the fence for me. And as a heel, that's perfect. after the show, one of the guys came up to me and said, "Yeah, Jeff doesn't want you to do that no thing anymore." I was like, "Why not? It works, and nobody else seems to even have a catchphrase, and this puts the whole audience against me."
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And my response is, well, cry me a river. If it's getting over, stop complaining. But then again, Insane Clown Posse, who can't wrestle at all, showed up in TNA and were crazy over. Half the audience was showing up wearing the clown paint. They were chanting, they were screaming. They made it a wild, exciting atmosphere.
Yeah.
As soon as they got over to the point where nobody cared about Jeff, people wanted to see ICP. ICP was basically told, we're changing direction, we don't need you. Instead of making money with these guys, they'd rather lose money with Jeff on top than make money with somebody else who was over.
That has been some critics have suggested that Jeff is being pushed at the expense of the company, or that creatively it wouldn't be the best direction to go. Do you think that had something to do with your catchphrase? Because it's not uncommon in wrestling, the perception that someone's push or someone's catchphrase or something that endears them to the fans will be taken away simply because the company doesn't want to push that person, as opposed to it not working.
Well, I know that I was supposed to come in. Jeff saw me when I was in those WWA shows.
Mm-hmm.
He saw me do the no thing, and he saw how well that got over.
Right.
He shouldn't have been at all surprised when I showed up and did it. And if he did want me to do it, he should have said something before he handed me the mic and said, "Just go out and do your thing. I trust you."
Mm-hmm. After the situation with you and Jeff, the match you had. Who was working with you on your matches from that point forward? Who was booking your character?
Basically, they put me in that stupid red shirt thing,
mm-hmm.
and the whole gist of that thing is that I've been doing this 14 years,
mm-hmm.
and Kevin Northcutt, I think, has been doing it 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think they wanted to kind of have me help Northcutt advance.
Mm-hmm.
Just somebody with more experience would just help somebody with that. And Kevin's a great guy and really exigent. I have no problem helping him with anything. I think he's a good talent on his own. And I think basically the idea for me coming into the red shirts, I think what happens is Dutch had a certain attraction to Kevin Northcutt, but they don't want to really beat Kevin Northcutt. They don't think he's worthy of a push yet, but they don't want to beat him. So I was brought in to get Kevin over, and at the same time, I could lose every time. I could be the one to do the job.
Right.
So that Kevin could still stay strong, and then they could just unload me later on. I'm positive that's what Dutch had in mind.
And that's ultimately the way it ended up happening.
Exactly the way it played out.
Oh, now
mind you, Kevin only did one show after me,
mm-hmm.
and then he's been sitting at home for probably 6 months. I've been home for 7, so
mm-hmm.
he's been home for 6 and change.
Mm-hmm. Now, during your time in NWA TNA, notwithstanding your character, what was the atmosphere like backstage compared to WWE or other major organizations that you've worked with?
You had a lot of people who really believed in the product with TNA. With WWF, when I was there, they were still kind of doing the war with WCW.
Mm-hmm.
I was sacked the same day they bought WCW.
Right.
So everybody felt they were part of a winning team, and they felt like they were a team, so it was a good atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Things, from what I'm told, have pretty much soured there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody I've talked to at TNA, apparently the atmosphere there is just horrible. But at the time, everybody was kind of gung-ho about trying to make this, the best possible company in the world. And sorry, I was just saying goodbye to my goddaughter. Everybody just really wanted this company to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the guys, I'm not going to say who, but a couple of them I think were just marking out a little bit over being able to be on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
As a certain milestone in their careers. And, I was thrilled the first couple times I was on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't blame them for that. But talking to a few guys from TNA since, apparently the atmosphere there is horrible. And I can't blame them. They started off the company with 15,000 buys every week, and now they're down under 7.
Right. Now, of course, they're changing their direction a lot right now. That they've gotten rid of the pay-per-view idea, which for 2 years, analysts and critics have all said this isn't going to work, it's not going to fly, you're not going to make enough money back to support doing weekly pay-per-views. Now they've turned away from that, but there's been really no solid indication so far that they're actually coming close to meeting their expenditure. It seems at this point, at least the perception is at this point, that if it wasn't for the financial backing they had and they have right now, that they wouldn't necessarily be afloat the way they're currently doing business. Do you think that's the way it is?
I think that's exactly the way it is, and truthfully, I don't believe they're going to be around that much longer.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine Panda Energy. Last I heard, they were losing $70-something thousand a week.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine a company would bleed that much money. I mean, there's something to say for tax write-offs, but after a while, that's got to eventually kick you right in the ledger.
Right.
I don't see them lasting, at least not with their current. Even if they change their office staff right now,
mm-hmm.
even if they were smart enough to unload Dutch, to pull Jeff off TV, get rid of him entirely, and get a whole new office structure, you still have to win back those 8,000 viewers, like loyal viewers you had every week, before
mm-hmm.
you can build on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to take a good long time.
Creatively, what do you think of the direction of the company? It's not necessarily the focus of every episode, but the one thing in press releases that they always push is the X Division being what makes them unique from WWE, which of course has a very bad track record with pushing lighter weight wrestlers and giving them time to wrestle. Do you think that that's a direction, that X Division direction, that will work in the mainstream, that has potential, or do you think putting that amount of emphasis on athleticism instead of character is a problem to begin with?
No, I think that what TNA is doing, and I'm going to sound so conspiracy-minded,
mm-hmm.
basically the whole company is revolving around Jeff has to be a star.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing with the X Division is they're saying, yes, the X Division is different. Yes, the X Division is, not what WWF does, and we have athletes and blah, 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 which is a good thing. And most of the X Division guys are phenomenal athletes,
mm-hmm.
Especially guys like Petey Williams and Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley.
Yeah.
Partially, hey, they're my students in Windsor. I love those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm biased, but they're also tremendously talented guys with tremendous personality.
Mm-hmm.
What TNA is doing is they're booking, these guys in 5-minute matches and saying, go, 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 go. Every time they go, 80 miles an hour, saying, well, why didn't you do 100? If they do 100, why didn't you do 120? They're not giving them a chance to sell. They're not giving them a chance to do anything to get any personality over during the matches.
Right.
And, Petey Williams has that Canadian Destroyer, that Sunset Flip pile driver thing,
right,
which is a phenomenal move. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, as good as he is, if he were to leave in 2 weeks, how many people would remember him? They'd remember that move, but they wouldn't remember him.
Right.
Because he hasn't had a chance to get over.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, people are simply going to run out of moves.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be able to shock value the crowd with those moves. And when that happens, that's when Dutch steps up and says, you know what, the X Division just isn't doing it. We tried.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was booking it correctly, the X Division would be tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's what it is? Is that it's about finding a better balance to not only have the great moves, but also have a better match storyline and more developed characters? Do you think that would make it click?
Yeah, I fully believe that. I think that what you do in the moves makes you a wrestler. What you do between the moves makes you a star. Whenever the Rock sets up the people's elbow, do the people go crazy for the actual elbow, or do they go crazy for the setup for the elbow?
Right, right.
I think that personality is key. That's why Hulk Hogan was over. It wasn't because he did a lot of moves.
Yeah, yeah.
When one of your moves is get in the ring, maybe you're limited, But it was his personality, it was his character that what got him over, where people warmed up to him. People don't fall in love with moves. People fall in love with characters. They fall in love with people.
Mm.
That's like the difference between The Rock and Brock Lesnar.
Mm.
The Rock was brought in slow. They pushed him stronger than a lot of guys. But people got a chance to listen to him, to warm up to him, to adapt to him, and ultimately they fell in love with him. Whereas Brock Lesnar was brought in, they said, he's the king. He's the best. He's the next big thing. You're going to love him. You're going to respect him. He's the best. Here's everything you ever needed to know about him. There was never a getting to know you phase where people were curious. Oh, well, I didn't have this question answered. Let's watch this week and see if they answer that question.
Right.
They just threw everything at you. And when they saw him the first time, holy cow, the guy's a friggin' animal.
Mm.
But then there was no way to follow it up. They didn't fall in love with him because he was a statistic. He wasn't a person.
Right.
And that's ultimately why The Rock was somebody they fell in love with and married, and Brock was a one-night stand.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it, and it's good to have someone with your depth of experience here to talk about things like that. Now, a couple of weeks from now, as you mentioned earlier, you're going to be wrestling Jeff Jarrett. Is there anything you're going to be saying to Jeff about your run with TNA, or do you hope to go back there at some point?
No, I have no desire to go back there. I've just moved back to Germany, and haven't been this happy in forever. I'm going to Japan once every other month, Switzerland's been treating me great. I go to England. I'm looking forward to going back to FWA. I've been speaking to promoters in Ireland and Scotland. I got this Nigeria thing coming up. I'm totally happy with this. I've asked the promoter to put me in a match with Jeff. I don't think he's going to because I can't guarantee how professional I'll be. I really just would love to harm him. I don't appreciate being lied to or ripped off, and he's done both those things. So I've told the promoter there that I'll respect his wishes, and if he doesn't want me to, if he figures it's going to be bad for him, for me to confront Jeff, then I won't do it. And he and I'll have words in the parking lot.
Right.
But all things being equal, I got nothing for him but a smack in the face.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for your candor and for sharing with us your amazing career to date. You've wrestled with some of the biggest promotions in the world, and I'm sure you'll continue to do so. Our fans here in Europe can continue to track your whereabouts. Do you have a website you'd like to plug or just some upcoming dates you'd like to talk about?
Well, my website is www.legendwrestling.com.
So people can find out about your upcoming appearances there?
With any luck, it's still kind of under construction, but hopefully within the next week I should have all my stuff on there.
Great stuff. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And,
my pleasure entirely.
We look forward to doing it again, and best of luck with your future endeavors internationally in the world of professional wrestling.
Thanks. My phone's always on for you guys.
You bet. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay, welcome back. Joining us now is one of the most talented men doing the rounds in the United States of America right now. You'll see him in Ring of Honor, many other top promotions over there. He's currently over on this side of the water. 2 months he's traveling around Britain, and yes, we're talking about you. He's traveling around England, Britain, All-Star Wrestling, FWA, pretty much all around this whole area. It's a pleasure to welcome Colt Cabana. Word.
Thanks. Hi.
Hey, how you doing, Colt?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. How long you been in the neighborhood?
Well, I stopped by about a month ago, and I got another month to go, so that's a 2-month span.
How have you been finding it?
I've had a great time. People are nice. The cars are weird. Everyone likes tea and coffee.
They sure do.
Yes.
I always have my mug of tea right here on the show. It's important to have your tea.
I guess
on the show. If this is America, it'd be coffee. If we're shooting this in New York, but we're shooting this in England and Ireland.
Okay.
England now. What's different between working in England and the U.S., North America?
Well, here at the grocery stores, the people sit down in the chairs, like when the cash register people. And then when they check you out and they sit down, and it's probably the greatest thing ever to be working over here in England because you don't have to stand all day. And you just sit down and they give you a chair. It's probably good for your back. Don't have to get calluses or athlete's foot. So that's probably one of the big pluses for working over in England.
I know. I have heard rumors they take $1 out of their paycheck every hour for that.
For the chair?
That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true.
Well, it could be worth it out of pure laziness of the workers. I would do it. I'd pay $1 or maybe £1 or $2.
Well, maybe you can look into that.
Well, I will. I plan on bringing that back to America because I think it's ingenious that people sit down when why haven't Americans thought of that?
Well, maybe you could patent it. You could anybody who sits when they're serving someone in a department store or a grocery store, they'd have to pay you $1 an hour.
I'll take it.
There we go. Colt the Millionaire Cabana.
You know what? The clapper was. It takes one idea. Just takes one idea.
How about in the ring? What's the difference there?
Oh, wrestling.
Yeah. When you're graps, as we call it.
So, man, there's a lot of difference. It depends because England has. It's very weird how I picked it up. England has kind of been influenced by American wrestling, and now when you go over to the indie style, a lot of it has been influenced by Britain wrestling.
Yes.
So it's kind of always the grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. So for some of the more entertaining shows, I find a lot of the American wrestling the same, so it's not hard for myself. But also over here in England, a lot of the veterans and the old British way, the old world of sport wrestling. I've noticed the brush up and how it works and the shell eyes. That it's interesting and I love it. And so. The technical aspect of it also, of how the British wrestling works is very different from the American, where there's a lot of different exchange, a lot of more kind of amateur, kind of like a high-speed amateur.
Right.
That's what it seems like, as opposed to American style, where it's more telling a story with your mouth as opposed to with your body and with your hands.
Right. Have you found it difficult to adapt to the style?
Well, I don't really, coming over as an American, I don't see it that I should be adapting. Don't think it that way. That
I hope none of your opponents are listening to this, because you're gonna get a smash.
Yeah, exactly. But as an American feature, I think they want to see
the style
the American.
that you bring.
Yes.
Right.
But at the same time, I also try to bring in a little of the British stuff that I've taken from here. So
Right.
I try to put that. I'm like intertwining it slowly but surely. I'm now becoming a British wrestler.
Do you think you might bring some of the things you've learned here back and use them in the States?
Of course, and that's one of the most important reasons why I'm over here is to learn the British way of wrestling and the etiquette and the style and the culture and bring it back to America for something different, spice it up a little. I think that's very important.
Now, in America, when British wrestlers go over there, there's very few that are known. Doug Williams, Nigel McGuinness are making waves in Ring of Honor. Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch have had some great matches, but by and large, it's very difficult. Whereas, from what I've seen coming back the other direction, it's different. Do people know who you are from your exposure in the U.S.? When you come out of the curtain, people go, "Oh, that's Colt Cabana. I saw him."
I find it that there are people who know who I am, and especially like at the FWA shows, where they're very smart to the internet and just different ways of getting their news and stuff, as opposed to just going to the local town every week.
Right.
So I find it that I am getting known, and it's weird because I'm an American. I've traveled the States, and I came over here for 4 days last year, but that's about it. But people do know, and especially with the wrestling channel now showing Ring of Honor,
right,
and stuff like that, it makes for even better exposure. So there are people who know who I am. Yeah.
Now, since you've come over to England, I know you've had a very hectic schedule. Of course, in the States, indie dates are harder to come by. The territories don't really exist anymore.
Yes.
Each promotion has maybe a show or two a month,
right,
and it's all over instead of one promotion touring all the time.
Right.
Have you experienced this heavy schedule in the U.S. as you've had over here the last
Heavy
month?
what?
Heavy schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule. Schedule, sir.
A schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule, yes. Yeah, it's interesting.
You're in our part of the territory now. You
I'm
speak
sorry.
our way.
I will adapt, and I will eat your oregano and your tomatoes. Yes.
Okay, but that has to be after 8 p.m.
Schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule. So, yeah, it's interesting. Back home, you wrestle 2-3 times a week on the weekends. During the week, I'm in Chicago, training, hanging out, studying, watching tapes, doing whatever. Here, I'm on the road all week, especially with All-Star Wrestling. Brian Dixon's All-Star Wrestling is kind of what I'm doing during the weekdays, and we travel from town to town, East Coast to West Coast, to down south to up north, and it's just you're in a car and you're traveling and you're getting to see the world, but at the same time you're not at home, you're not. So it's different, and it is back, a callback to the territories and just going from town to town, and it's something that I'm glad that I've had to experience, because back home, especially a guy like Tracy Smothers, who's still wrestling now,
right,
who wrestled in the territories, was always saying, Colt, I wish there was territories again. All you guys would have jobs, everybody would be eating, and it was so cool. You go to town, and that's what he would say, and I knew, from watching tapes and hearing, shoot interviews or whatever, I knew that they existed, but you never really got to experience them, and that's
the feel. Yeah.
And that's something that's kind of going on right now over here, and I'm appreciative of it. So,
well, you've worked with a lot of great stars. Of course, Tracy Smothers, people will know from runs in WWF all over the place. Also, Dusty Rhodes, you had an interaction with at Ring of Honor. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. First of all, how'd you find those two guys to work with? Because, of course, they're two of the greatest legends in modern wrestling.
Yeah, well, first of all, Ricky Steamboat's the biggest class act going in wrestling today. He would take that, just anyone who wanted to learn, he was willing to spread his information. And all the years that he's done stuff, he was willing to let learn. And now that, the Second City Saints were kind of on his side,
Yeah.
we kind of made a formation, it's even better because he's taken us, within his grasp and willing to give us, the knowledge that he's done for so many years. And so he's a class act, and it's just great to be around him. And Dusty was cool too. I did an interview segment with him, and Dusty was always kind of, like an inspiration in interviews. Like funky like a monkey, baby. Just he was out there. He wasn't the, I am pro wrestling, grrr. That wasn't him. Yeah. That wasn't his shtick, and that's what got him over. That's why people loved him, because he was just the son of a plumber,
Right.
So, and it was great to be a part of it. It was really something that when I stepped through the doors of training school, 6 years ago and 7 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamed that I would be able to do an interview with Dusty Rhodes, and
right.
Just says a lot,
Yeah. Okay, quick question. Do you think
Yes.
Ricky the Dragon is going to come back for one more match? Because there's been a lot of talk about that.
Well, there's a lot of talk, and I'm not Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I don't have his back, or that's his call. You just have to wait and see, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Now, like you're saying, you started off 6 years ago. You've been all over the place. Someone sees your resume. You've been all over the place in the U.S., and now you're obviously also expanding your horizons internationally. Is that travel, is that something that you want to do, or is it something that you need to do?
A little bit of both. When I first came into wrestling, there's guys there's local guys, and then there's guys who get all around. And I wanted to be the guy that got all around, and I wanted to be the guy who people would see. Wow, Colt Cabana was in Minnesota on Thursday. He was in St. Louis on Friday. He was in Ohio on Saturday. He was in Kalamazoo, Michigan on Sunday. And they're like, well, how's he doing? What's going on? Why is he so known all over? And that's how you get your name out. And that's how people know who you are from different places and different territories in indie wrestling in the United States, if that's what we have. So I love the travel. That's part of being a wrestler. You make your rounds, you go on the road, if you're lucky enough, you get to go in different airports and even sleep in different airports and whatever. That's part of the wear and tear, and that's part of the wrestling business, and that's why I love it.
The scene in the States the last 10 years has become very difficult for someone up and coming, such as yourself in the last 6 years, because, of course, as we talked about, the territories have faded away. Vince McMahon and WCW and ECW sort of started coming up, but then both WCW and ECW folded. So now it's like there's only 30, 40 good slots at all in the business, and there is so much talent. How difficult is it? Because it used to be indies are where you learn your craft. These days, indies are bursting with 5-star guys. How hard is it for a guy to break in?
It's not nearly impossible, but it's hard to break in. You got the WWE, and that's where all the jobs are. And then besides that, there aren't a lot of guys making livings for themselves.
Yeah.
We're trying. I'm fortunate enough to make a living as a wrestler, and that's always been my dream, and I'm doing it. But after that, there's Ring of Honor, CZW, and just a bunch of these other, all these other promotions where people will take notice. But like you said, back then, 10 years ago, the bigger indie promotions, you could always kind of get a spot because people were always moving up or moving down to Memphis, blah blah blah. So now, you just have to fight to get a spot in one of the bigger promotions. And so it's really like an honor. It's an honor as a wrestler for myself to be wrestling in Ring of Honor, because I know that I've had to fight and claw and make my way to, the top promotions in the indie scene in the U.S.
Now, you touched on the Second City Saints. You and CM Punk, when did you guys start working together? You've been great partners and great rivals.
Well, we trained together back in Chicago. And we both were guys that wanted to go St. Louis, Minnesota, all around the country, just being known as wrestlers. And I think that helped us a lot as kind of being as a tandem, because you'd always hear Colt Cabana and CM Punk, and you'd always hear us together to different places, and people started taking notice, and then they started watching us wrestle, and hopefully they were impressed. So we started training together. So we've known each other throughout our whole wrestling careers. And then when we got the call, when we went up to Ring of Honor, I think they wanted to try to dabble and, maybe him going doing this, me going doing that. But we just had such a natural chemistry, all of us together, because we've been on the roads for so long. And we've done everything. So it was just natural that we went together. And, of course, with Ace Steel, who trained both of us. There you go, Second City Saints, Chicago,
How did you guys wind up getting called up to Ring of Honor?
You know, our names were out there for so long, and we were doing so many good things, and people, you know, I think, you know, took notice, and they started up. I saw Rob at a 3PW show, and he asked for a tape, and you know, he said he heard such great things, and he wanted us to be part of the show, and then a year went by, and I was like, yeah, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, Punk got a call, and they were talking how they wanted to bring us in for so long, but you know, they had so many storylines and so much. They had to finish storylines and then start new ones, and that's a show of a great promotion. Right. Not just bing, bing, bing and storylines. You know, they had plans for Punk and Cabana, and but you know, it was like 8 months down the line, and you know, it was weird they never told us, but right. So you know, but I wasn't turning it down, and I don't think Punk was either.
Yeah. Well, the old favorite is, oh, we have plans, just hang on there. So
Well, exactly. Yeah. And that was one of their things too. They didn't want to speak a big game before, you know, big bark, no bite.
Now, a criticism of a lot of independent wrestling promotions in the U.S. is that because they're run by people who are very inside, smart kind of fans, they're geared towards the inside fans, really, really hardcore fans, and because of that, it's not as accessible to just the mainstream Hulkamaniac type people. Do you think that the amount of knowledge which is required to appreciate some of the styles in Ring of Honor or other bigger U.S. indies actually keeps them from drawing in more of a mainstream audience?
It's interesting you say that. The goal of wrestling, you know, is obviously to sell tickets, and in Ring of Honor, it's like kind of to sell videotapes. Right. But you want to bring in the casual fan, and that's the most important thing. And Ring of Honor, and I'm just going to speak from Ring of Honor's kind of point of view, is that they have such a great product that when they bring in a casual fan and they bring in the Midnight Express, who maybe some older guys will remember, you know, who older people remember, you know, back when they were kids. Well, let's go, wow, Midnight Express is coming. They're all 4 of them. Let's go watch them. And then all of a sudden they see the Ring of Honor product, and it's such an awesome thing that it'll, next time they're in town, they'll buy a Ring of Honor ticket. And that's, I think, you know, the idea is that, yeah, it's not, you know, Hulkamania, blah, 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 but if you come in and you watch it, or if your friend gives you a videotape or a DVD, and you see the product, and you know, and you see Doug Williams, you know, doing crazy British stuff that no one's ever seen in the States before, or Jack Evans doing, you know, flippity flips, and Colt Cabana making somebody laugh, then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, wow, that's, you know, wow, I'll pay my, you know, $15.
So you think there's a broad enough appeal there?
There's so much going on, and it's just altogether, it's such a great package that, you know, what you got to do is get the casual fan in the door, and I think, you know, that's how you got to do it. You know, how you do it, that's up to the promoters and the advertisers. Right. And but I think a great idea is some of these older guys coming in, especially for Ring of Honor, Ricky Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes, you know, Abdul the Butcher was coming in, Midnight Express, Jim Cornette's there with them. So, and if not that, you know, then it's word of mouth, friends giving DVDs, you know, wearing T-shirts. You know, what's that? It's Ring of Honor. It's really cool. Check it out. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, come to my house, eat some Oreos. That's how I interpret it, how people would do it. Because Oreos are really good.
Unless you break them and it just frustrate. I'm not good with my hands.
I just kind of chuck 2 in at a time.
Well, there you go. You see, you go for the heart of it. Hey. You take it out. Speaking of going to the heart of it, you've also wrestled with NWA TNA, which is now going for guts and glory. They got a big pay-per-view down in this coming November down in Florida. You've done some Explosion dates.
Is that your transition, the heart of it?
Yeah. You see, I just take whatever you say and I find a way. You see, Florida is kind of, for example,
Where does the heart of it come into TNA?
Here's where we're going. You see, first of all, NWA TNA, right? Okay. They're going for the heart of wrestling. You see, they're putting all their money in and they're going for it. Here's another one. You see, they're going to be in Florida, right? Now, Florida is the heart of the election coming up. No. The H-E-A-R-T.
Gary Hart lives in Florida.
Does he? Do you have his number?
I know.
Oh, okay. Never mind that. Doesn't matter. But the point is that NWA TNA do have a pay-per-view coming up in November. You have worked with those guys before. Do you think you'll be back there? Have you any interest in working for those guys?
Man, I did one show for them. Yeah, there's interest in wrestling for NWA TNA, and you know, I hope maybe there's some interest on their part. And it's just, you know, it's kind of there's so much politics in wrestling, and
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one day you'll see Colt Cabana on there, maybe not. It's.
Do you think in that case the political climate in Ring of Honor is better, that's more geared towards talent than who you know, than NWA TNA perhaps?
I really can't speak for NWA TNA, I can speak for Ring of Honor, and there's always politics in wrestling. I can't say it's too political there. It's because it is based on if you're a good wrestler, you're in. If you're Mickey Mouse, you're out. That's how it works. So, I would. That's all I can say. I can't really speak for TNA.
Now, if you had the opportunity to go to WWE, yay or nay?
Sure.
A lot of people working for the promotion right now are disgruntled because they don't feel that the storyline writing's up to par, and a lot of people are frustrated because they don't feel momentum.
Yeah.
Is that something, as someone sitting outside the company, you're kind of thinking, well, you got a guaranteed contract, you're making this amount of money, deal with it, or what would be your attitude?
I've heard people say, people outside of WWE saying how much, who would care if, saying the exact same thing you're saying, and then they actually get there, and then they're saying, I'm frustrated. So it's interesting that you say that. I don't know. I'd like, that's what I grew up watching, kind of thing. I'd like to, it's a full time. It's there's structure there. There's kind of a guarantee, not a guarantee, a guarantee contract. So, I'm not saying that I love it. I don't know. I don't know until something happens. But it's a place I'd like to see myself, hopefully in the future.
And hypothetical for you, if you go in and you're on the road, you're wrestling 5-minute matches a night instead of right now you're wrestling generally much longer matches than WWE house show matches. And who are you? I'm Colt Cabana. Who? My name is. Right. Yeah, we're gonna make you a cue card guy. Your gimmick is that you hold a cue card and you come out, right? Yes. There you go. Would you be happy to sort of go into that and throw away the character you've developed? Would you be happy enough to try something completely new, even if you didn't believe in it?
Well, I've been thinking of a couple things, like the world champion ping pong player.
That would rank up there with Isaac Yankem, I think.
Well, the Kool-Aid drinker. The Oreo eater. I've got plenty of them. So, if they want to pitch one of those ideas, I wouldn't want to do anything like a cue card guy. That's
so what you're saying basically is no matter how bad their idea, you'll come up with the worst one and make sure it happens.
What do you mean the worst one?
I mean that I think your ideas are intriguing, and I would subscribe to your newsletter.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And I'll send one to you if you give me your address.
Well, excellent. It's international postage, so I hope you know.
Budget is not a problem, my friend.
And speaking of promotions you have worked for, IWA Mid-South, we were on Ring of Honor a second ago. Fine.
No, we were on WWE and TNA a second ago, promotions that I don't work for.
But you did work for TNA.
All right.
Okay, fine. My transitions have just been destroyed. I'm very distraught now. I'm just thinking of packing.
That's a big word, so that would be distraught. I was impressed.
Okay, well, let's just simply go to IWA.
Okay.
Let's just head west and just zoom. Out we go.
Sure.
We're leaving New York. Zoom. We get on the road. Heading on over. Ian Rotten, you've worked there before. What do you think of working with the promotion? Of course, he held gold there, which means the company has invested in you. What do you think of working for them?
That's where I bit my nails. That's where I kind of made my name, understood who I was as a wrestler. I think it's where I really got my first time on the microphone, where I really got the first time to kind of do whatever I wanted. And I think that was kind of because he was like, do whatever you want. So. Which works well. I would go down there, and again, like you said, like the territory, and that's where I would meet guys like Bull Payne and American Kickboxer, Tarek the Great, guys who have actually done the territories before they died out.
Right.
They were doing, there was Memphis and Kick-Ass Wrestling down there. So it was interesting talking to them and seeing how it worked, and especially at such a young age. So Ian always gave me the opportunity to wrestle some the better guys, some of the people that have been around. He has a locker room that is filled with people who understand wrestling, and so it was always a treat and a treasure and a pleasure, and that rhymed. Yes, and I'm a poet, but I do know it. So it was awesome wrestling for Ian.
Are you booking for my job?
Am I what?
No. Are you bucking for my job? Sitting there, just running me down, saying your poems. Oh, God, I'm disgusted.
Is that an English word?
No, it's not an English word.
Because in the States, bucking means something else. And I wouldn't climb the ladder like that, my friend.
Again, after
Sorry,
8 p.m. After 8 p.m. Okay. Ian Rotten's style is very different to yours. It's very hardcore.
Right.
Speaking of after 8 p.m. And there's, see, ha-ha, got you with that one.
Like
that was
it.
Appropriate. Thank you.
Yes.
Now we're all like
we're
this.
on the right path.
That's it. Do you mind that style? Would you be, if someone said, okay, you're in a TLC match, we want you to rip yourself apart, every night.
Yeah.
Is that something you go for?
I'd probably punch him in the face.
Really?
Not the person in the ring.
Whoever told you to.
Well, TLC is completely different from a Taipei death on nails running over with a train match. It's a TLC. There could be meaning to it. No, don't get me wrong. There's meaning to a Taipei death match, but it's kind of one end of the extreme to the other.
Right.
I've done chairs. I've done tables. I don't mind mixing it up with that. I have no desire to do a Taipei death match, a barbed wire match, a thumbtack match.
Right.
Shoot me in the face 9 times match. That's just not my thing. Do I like watching it? Yes. Okay, I'll be honest. Watching these people kill themselves is kind of amusing to me. For my entertainment, I appreciate it, but
it's not something you personally
not something I want to do.
would endeavor to do.
No.
Do you find that expectations while you're over here in England are different upon you? That you won't see that style of match, you'll see it more, or?
I've seen a little bit of it. What do you mean?
Like when you're over here, like in the States, obviously, a lot of cards these days are very set. Okay, you guys are having the technical match.
Okay.
You guys are having the high flying. You guys are going to bleed all over the place and stuff pigs.
Right.
Is it the same kind of thing over here, or is it more traditional wrestling, do you find?
Well, what I've been on it is, kind of traditional wrestling. With FWA, they kind of go around the spectrum a lot. They kind of have different aspects, and it's cool because they're catering to a different audience than some of the other promotions.
Right.
So, again, and that's the same way it is in the States, I guess. There's different promotions that cater to different people.
Yeah.
So it just it depends on the cards. Yeah, the people, the fans are different and the wrestlers are different. But there's always going to be, promotions that just cater to who they want to cater to. And that's the audience they want. And that's the same thing, you're not trying to get, well, you might be catering to old ladies, but, I think your demographic is 18 to 34, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what you're going for. And, you're not going to be showing the Care Bears, versus the Flintstones in a wrestling match. So I'd pay to see that, but
I want to see your
just
tape
me.
collection.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Well, on the topic of FWA, you had a match with Johnny Storm, a friend of ours, a couple of weeks ago.
Sure.
How'd you like the match, and how'd you like working for the FWA promotion?
Man, I love working for FWA. Johnny Storm, I got to wrestle him twice, actually. I wrestled him up in BCW in Scotland.
Right.
And I got to wrestle him in FWA at the big show. I think it was Hot Wired, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it was a blast. Johnny's an international competitor. He's a world-class competitor. He's a world-class wrestler. And we did some good things. I think the people enjoyed it. And that's what's important. And I enjoyed myself, and I think he enjoyed himself. So.
What do you find is the difference? Do you prefer working a guy who, because you're a pretty big guy for the territory indie type scene. You're 6'1", pure muscle, I'm sure.
Yes.
Do you prefer working guys your size or taller, or do you prefer working the smaller guys? Because Johnny is physically smaller than you.
Yeah, honestly, man, I prefer. I'll wrestle anybody. I love wrestling everybody. I kind of tend to go with the smaller guys because I can, I'm there. I can move with them for being a bigger guy, and it kind of works out well for me. Where people will say, wow, it's 6'1", 240 pounds, or I'm sorry, 6'1", 16 stones,
14
2
times.
rocks.
I can't add.
Carry the one, add a pebble. Yeah. So it makes me look better that I can go with those guys. At least I like to think that I can. So there's different ways to do it. So with a bigger guy, you kind of have to tone it down a little. You can't do some of the stuff because then you'll just get sat on or something.
Your name was brought up on Raw last week.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that something you knew about in advance, or were you sitting there going, hey, man, I heard about you on Raw?
Yeah. If anyone wants to go back watch Raw, what's it, October 4th? Or
was it this Monday?
it was past Monday, so Friday over here.
Yeah. So it was this past Friday. It was that past Thursday's episode.
Yeah, Ace Steel pulled what you would call a rib in WWE. So if you want to know my real name, go and watch that.
Yeah, you see how I've tiptoed around your real name for this whole show, and yet 300,000 people saw it last Thursday. Anyway,
there you go. Well, there you go.
So okay, what is coming up next for you in England right now?
Well, I'm always on tour with Brian Dixon's All Star Wrestling.
Right.
I've been wrestling for FCW over in Birmingham. I did wrestle for IPW UK. They had their first show. I'm going to Germany, German Stampede Wrestling. And then that's at the end of the month.
Right.
I'm also doing in November. 1st of November. I'm doing BCW in Scotland again. And that's kind of my upcoming schedule. Also upcoming will be Uprising 3, November 13th.
That's right.
FWA.
FWA, baby.
So be there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be there or not, but I recommend everyone at home should.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, definitely. If they don't make it in person, I'll see it right here in the Wrestling Channel.
Yeah, that's right.
And just making sure we get those FWA bookings down the line.
It's November 13th, by the way.
And
it's Uprising.
When you go back to the States, what's going to be next for you? Are you going to be straight back with Ring of Honor? Or?
Yeah, the Big Jushin Thunder Liger show.
That's right. November 5th and 6th, yeah.
Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I'm doing some stuff for MRW in Kansas City. It's kind of local independent shows. So just traveling the loop like I always do. I'll be in Chicago. If you're in Chicago, come say hi. Yeah, I'll probably be at a Cubs game. So
now, some of the guys before I let you go here, who TWC fans have seen a lot on the channel. I want to ask your opinion of them because you've worked with them a lot. First of all, one of our favorites wrestled Doug Williams quite a lot, and in fact took that FWA title over to Ring of Honor. Christopher Daniels. How have you found working with him?
I love wrestling Chris. He's a class act. He's been around wrestling for so long, and.
Is that water hot?
I don't know. He's been around England a lot too, and like him and AJ and all these guys are just a pleasure to work with. And they know what they're doing, and they're veterans. So.
Yeah. Another guy is Raven, who in his own interview that we saw here a few weeks ago comes from the school of do as little as you can, which is completely the polar opposite, it seems to me, that most guys coming up are trying to do as many flips as they can, whereas Raven sort of takes pride in doing as little as possible while keeping the fans into the match. Do you think that up-and-coming wrestlers have a lot to learn from veterans such as Raven?
Well, it's like Raven's been along for so long, and he was back in the territories too. You can't forget that. So he comes from kind of the old school theory of kind of do as little as you can, get the most out of it. Yes, I think everyone should be kind of trained the old school theory. And then if you want, like AJ and Chris and a lot of these guys, and I'm not going to put myself in the same, but I'm just saying like we were all trained old school theory first. Know how to do the basics, know how to do everything like that. And then pick it up. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do anything really flashy in the first 1-2 years. And then after that, I started picking it up because I knew what the people wanted. So, so I think Raven has a strong idea. I don't think if he's against doing all of that stuff, if he's against doing like the high tempo,
the high
spots,
high impact.
The industry is changing. I don't know really his views on that. Obviously what he does works for him and it works for him well because he's a great wrestler. He knows what he's doing. So I'm not against. I'm not against the high spots and the high action. But I am for the old school theory of how to do stuff. Yeah.
You were injured recently, and something I'd like to ask of our guests is when you sustain an injury that puts you on the shelf. A, how hard is it to stay out of action and not get straight back to the gym and further hurt yourself? And B, does that make you think about, how long is my career going to be? Should I start thinking about that?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, I was injured, I'd say it was like August, and I totally tore my shoulder, and I wrestled till October until I said, hey, I got to start, because business-wise, my body was starting to look bad. I couldn't hit the gym. I said to myself, okay, I got to take 2 months off. Right. And I knew that it would fix itself, and nothing in my head really went, wow, how long is this going to go? I'm going to ride this out as much as I can. But it gives you an idea that we're not Supermen, that stuff does happen. You have to be careful. And the same thing goes with the Raven theory, is that, if you're going to be wrestling, especially in Britain here, 5-6 times a week, Huracan Super Rana punches might not be happening every night. But if you could tell, if you could tell a good story and you could be, a professional wrestler and do it your best, the people will still like you and they'll enjoy yourself. Right. Yeah.
Well, fans over here in the UK and Ireland have certainly enjoyed your work to date. We look forward to seeing you more on the wrestling channel, Ring of Honor, and hopefully we'll see upcoming in TNA as well, because we have seen you on Explosion. Colt Cabana, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the Bagpipe Report.
Thank you very much, and that's it.
Okay, our next guest is very familiar to fans across the UK and Ireland. He is one of Britain's own and one of the best wrestlers and the most recognizable wrestlers to come down the pike in quite a while. Former heavyweight champion of FWA, Phil Flash Barker. How are you doing today, sir?
Very well, and yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you for that. Now, I want to start talking to you about, you retired recently, and you're such a young man to be retiring. Especially in this business where people can seemingly go on forever. Can you talk to us a little bit about the nature of the knee injury you sustained? And I know it was months in the making of trying to decide what would happen and see if you could come back from it. How did the knee injury occur, and when did you decide it was finally time to call it quits?
Well, it was actually an ongoing thing. To be perfectly honest with you, it had been hurting me for about at least a year and a half. Yeah. Bearing in mind that I've been wrestling for 17 years, so it was quite a while, and I knew I had to have some surgery done, but as all, I suppose, with most wrestlers, we're scared to find out the truth, and I knew what the doctors were going to say, and I thought, well, if I go for knee surgery there and then, pretty much my sort of career's over, so I really wanted to put it sort of like behind me and sort of fine, I'd take a few painkillers and I'll just keep training for it. Obviously, it was the wrong decision at the time, and it was just so much wear and tear on my knee. It got to a point where I couldn't even drive my car for about half hour before I had to stop and take a walk because my knee was hurting that much. And obviously, when I got into the final match when I was with Hayden at British Uprising, I really was at my best, and I knew I shouldn't have done the match, but I went in there and I remember doing like a vault. I jumped up the vault, so you guys went underneath me, and as I landed, it just something on my knee just went ping, and obviously worked on my knee. And to be honest with you, I thought he would have sort of laid off a bit. No, I was in such agony and real agony, but no, he just carried on, and really, that's sort of put the sort of finishes to my career, really.
Right. Do you think it was, people always talk about in this business how when you go out there in front of the spotlight, the adrenaline gets you going again. And as a wrestler, people don't realize how often people, like you talk about wrestling for 17 years, how often you go out there hurt. And it's very difficult to tell just how hurt you were. Do you think you added more to the injury by not having it checked immediately? Do you think it's possible that when the damage is starting to build, that if you knew how serious it could have been and you took some time off at the right time, you might still be wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. To say, I mean, your body's, you've got to listen to your body. And it was saying to me, it was hurting, and it was hurting really bad. But, once you get under that spotlight and then the adrenaline starts flowing, and for that, that brief amount of time, you don't feel pain because you're up there and you're pumped, you're psyched. It's only when you start coming down again, that's when the pain starts kicking in. Yeah. So, I thought, no, fine, I'll get in the ring, I'll be okay. And, I should have listened to my body. I really should have gone and checked it out further. But, what can I do? I mean, it's history now. And in hindsight, I should have done it, but hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Do you regret looking back on thinking, maybe I shouldn't have done this ladder match with Jody Fleisch. Perhaps maybe there's risks I took which I shouldn't have, or do you look back perhaps conversely and say, I'm glad I gave as much as I did at the time?
Well, absolutely. Every match I've done, I want to give 100%. And, wrestling is an evolving sport. And, to have the opportunity to do the main event of British Uprising and a ladder match against someone of the caliber of Jody Fleisch, right. You're not going to say no. To me, it was one of my best matches in my career. But, I worked it out over 17 years of wrestling. Bearing in mind that sometimes I was wrestling 3 times a day, every day. I've done over 1,500 matches. So that's, the cumulative total of all those matches. And sort of like, in the way to say, sometimes you take a fall, you land on your knees first, and at my size, I was 17 stone, right. And all that weight going into 2 small surface areas, which is going to take the majority of the impact. Of course, it's going to wear my knees away.
Right. Take us back to how you got started in the business.
I actually studied at Croydon, the gym that was run by late Roy Harding.
Really?
Yeah, and the guy that trained me was a bloke called Big John Prater, who was at the time he was a 23 stone powerlifter and also an ex-bare knuckle boxer. So he had quite good grounding in the sport, and obviously he could look after himself.
Right.
And he also taught me how to shoot and how to shoot properly.
Right.
And bearing in mind as well, before that I'd done 7 years of judo and 8 years of karate, which I achieved, downgrades in both. It was just, for me, it was a natural progression. And I've done a little bit of shoot wrestling, a little bit of amateur as well. So I thought, that sort of tied me over really.
How much do you think that background helped you in the professional wrestling game?
Oh the judo especially, because it taught me how to fall properly.
That's right.
And how to displace my weight over,
Balance,
to cover, make it sort of like loads of sort of surface area so you can displace the weight of the bang. So the judo especially, obviously the karate with the flexibility, and obviously the shooting side, I suppose, in case someone did take a liberty, I could take care of myself.
Right.
Which, unfortunately sometimes it does happen. It was just the way it was at that time that, there was the old school sort of thing. And like I say, bearing in mind, I was pretty much one of the last people when I first came in the business that really, really had it hard. That for the first 6 or 7 months, I was absolutely beaten to a pulp. I'd go home really black and blue, and I couldn't go to work the next morning because I was beaten up that bad. But in the end of the day, that was my education. That was my apprenticeship. And unfortunately, people don't, or unfortunately as the case may be, people don't suffer that no more.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about the wrestling business, the way it has changed? Because, of course, 17 years ago, as you talk about, it was different. The rules of engagement were different in that kayfabe was still absolute and 100%, and you had to go through those rigors to enter the business. Today, it's different. Today, people aren't tested to that degree. Today, it's more mainstream. Do you think that's a good thing for the business, or do you think it loses something?
I think you got to look at it objectively. In the end of the day, wrestling has always been an evolving sport. It can't stay still for too long. When I first broke in, the American wrestling was just coming on scene with the WWF, and the big thing was the British Bulldogs were in. So when looking at the British wrestling, then you see their product, you thought, wow, look at their bodies, look what they're doing. Then you look at the British product and you think, well, maybe that's not exciting. But, and again, in its own way, British wrestling was far superior, especially technically wise. But then you had the advent of hardcore wrestling, which was a natural progression. But now it's gone full circle. I believe it's gone full circle, and people now want to see, and what I'd like to see, is an athletic competition. Rather than like a show, which that's all, part of the showmanship is part and parcel of wrestling. But I would personally like to see an athletic competition against 2 people that are going to give it their all and make the best man win.
I was out there to Hotwired last month where we saw Steve Gray and Johnny Kidd go at it in the ring, and I thought both men gave an amazing account of themselves. How important do you think it is to have legends from yesteryear, people who are grounded in a different style of wrestling, perform for fans today?
Well, Absolutely. I mean, it's very important because I see those people as educators. They can educate the fan and that style of wrestling. The technical side. I mean, I fought Steve Gray many times, and he was one of my heroes growing up. And to wrestling was an absolute pleasure, and I was absolutely spellbound. There was moves that he was doing. I thought, well, how did you do that? Teach me that. And I wanted to learn. So obviously, when people see those moves, and you think, well, how does he do that? Rather than sort of running off doing a clothesline, and like I say, I mean, once you've seen one clothesline, you've seen them all. But when you do like a bit of chain wrestling, or you do an intricate takedown or an intricate arm lock, people are interested. Say, well, how do you get that on?
Right.
How do you get out of that? So I see those people as educators.
One of your good friends, Doug Williams, has become an ambassador for the sport, the English style of professional wrestling as of late, with his adventures in not only North America but also Japan. Why do you think it's so difficult for British wrestlers to be recognized these days? Because it's so easy for a wrestler in North America to become quite famous on a worldwide scale, but there are so many great wrestlers in England. What do you think they need to do to become more noticed?
I think the trouble is to be popular over there, everything evolves around having a gimmick, having a commodity to sell. You could be, I don't know, Joe Bloggs in a black pair of trunks, black boots, and if you haven't got a personality to go with it, then you're not going to get over.
Right.
But say with Doug, I mean, Doug, he's my best friend, and I've always considered him one of my best opponents I've ever wrestled, and he always brought out the best in me. And he is a very great ambassador because the style that he does, and and he says to me he purposely chose the English style. Now he could have gone and done high flying, he could have done hardcore, but he said no, he stuck to his roots and showed that I am a British wrestler and I do a British style. And really, his time will come, and it's well deserved. I do really believe it's well deserved.
After you wrestled Loki last year, there was a lot of talk of you going over to the U.S. Of course, Nigel McGuinness has been wrestling over there, Doug Williams. It never really seemed to pan out. Was that a plan, or was that just the talk among fans at the time?
I think it's possibly. I do remember when I'd done against Loki. I met with one of the guys that was co-promoting the show, and he said, he wanted to take me over, and I left it in the hands of the powers to be, and unfortunately, that's where it stopped.
Right. I
mean, possibly my own fault for myself. The reason why I suppose I never broke over in the States is I never done it for myself. I was never the greatest self-publicist, and you'll find most people that have got over that are very good self-publicists.
Yes.
You've got to go over that, and you've got to show people who you are. I suppose to a certain degree, I sat back, maybe trusted a few people, and said, "Well, okay, I'll let you sort it out for me." And it just never happened. But that's a lesson in life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't regret it because I could have gone to the States and that. But I mean, as I say, I've just recently got married, and I've got a beautiful wife, and I've got a little child on the way. And for me, life is perfect. So yes, it's a missed opportunity, but on the other hand, it's not a missed opportunity because my personal life has come on leaps and bounds.
You've only been retired a short time now. How much do you miss the in-ring action, and do you think it's going to get more difficult as time goes on? Because, of course, you're a young man. In a couple of years' time, you certainly won't be over the hill. Do you think it'll be more difficult as time goes on, as you're sitting there thinking, I could be having great matches today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every day I miss getting in the ring. In my current position as FWA commissioner, it's great because I'm still at the show, but there will always be a part of me that wants to perform. But, I just felt at this time that, because of my knee and the way I was feeling, I couldn't perform at 100%. And as I said in my retirement speech, if I can give people Flash Barker at 100%, I'd rather not give them Flash Barker at all, because I didn't think it would be fair on anyone. Especially myself, my opponent, and the fans, and they're the ones that pay the money. And if I can't give them 100%, then what's the point?
Is there any chance that we'll see you back in the ring sometime down the road?
We never say never. I mean, that's the only thing I can say is never say never. Yes, there'll always be that competitive edge to me, but because I've been retired a year now, and things that happened in my personal life, so I've taken priority. I haven't trained for about a year, so I need to get back in the gym, drop a few pounds, well, quite a few pounds actually, and start lifting some weights. I mean, if you think about it, back then, when I was training and training seriously, I was bench pressing just under 600 pounds. I'd be lucky to lift a third of that now. So I really need to get seriously training again. But as I say never, and watch this space.
Well, we certainly hope that we haven't seen the last of you in the ring. Flash Barker, thank you so much for joining us here on the Bagpipe Report. Anything you'd like to say to your fans before I leave you go?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for me, when I was wrestling, it's been an overwhelming experience. But when I done my retirement speech and the reaction I got from the fans, it was a very, very humbling experience and something that I will always remember for the rest of my life. So I'd really just like to say, thank the fans for the reception they got. It really did make me feel special. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Take care.
Take care.